assets of the municipality that were bought at higher prices include building materials and water meters.
And the inflation of the PPE price by service providers and the excessive cost of generators, inflated price for water materials and leasing of TLBs to the municipality during COVID pandemic. While the investigation was almost finalized, the AGSA has referred material irregularities for further investigation to the SIU.
Free State Education says it has learned that the number of learners who were struck by lightning on Monday afternoon at Tienerson is actually 4. Initial reports had said that 2 learners were struck by lightning. The department says that all 4 learners were from Daiwe Secondary. Spokesperson Howard Ndawa says they were walking home after school during a thunderstorm when the lightning struck, killing a 15-year-old grade 9 girl. 2 of the girls who were admitted for medical attention were discharged from Katlego Hospital in Virginia yesterday. And President Cyril Ramaphosa says the BRICS member countries are awaiting a report by finance ministers and central bank governors on the use of local currencies by the bloc. BRICS members support the idea of trading with their currencies, while some are calling for the de-dollarization. Ramaphosa says there must also be inclusive economic growth. Addressing the BRICS summit in Russia, Ramaphosa has said that women businesses must also be given preference.
We look forward to the report that will be given by our finance ministers and central bank governors on the use of local currencies in international trade and financial transactions between BRICS members and their trading partners. A few days ago, the BRICS business entities gathered in Moscow under the stewardship of the BRICS Business Council to explore tangible trade opportunities between our countries.
The top story at 3 o'clock, the suspect in the mass murder of 5 people in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape has been killed during a shootout with the police. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhaleme.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Bangladesh lead by 8-1 runs against the Proteas on day 3 of their first test, and World Rugby stamping out kicking escorts. More details at 3:30.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
Right, the Nelson Mandela Museum, in partnership with the University of Johannesburg and the National Liberation Heritage Institute of South Africa, that collective, well, they'll be hosting the 3rd edition of the African Liberation Heritage Indaba. Now, this event will take place on the 28th and 29th of October, so it's happening in the next few days, right? It's at UJ at the Arts Centre, Kingsway campus, and the theme is 30 years, not 200, scratch it out, 30 years of freedom. What have become of heritage assets and repatriation in South Africa? It's a very interesting question. The Indaba aims to bring together former liberation movements in the country, academics, researchers, social activists, and students to dialogue on topical and pertinent issues that are facing the African continent.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
And the National Pulse, it certainly is a warm welcome to you. Welcome to the show. Looking forward to connecting with you over the next 3 hours as you always do. Answer the question, what for you moves the National Pulse today? Different things can impact differently. So, I have my opinions. You certainly have yours in terms of what moves the National Pulse. I'll tell you what, as we talk about that, just think about this, right? The government of national unity, right? I don't want to go into the details, not at all, okay? But here's a question to you directly. What has the establishment of the GNU done to your personal psyche? And I mean personal. How have you internalized the GNU and the pluses and the minuses and all in between that? Yeah, what does it mean to you? How have you internalized the GNU and the impact that it has, well, on your national psyche, so effectively on your personal pulse, as we talk about personal and the national pulse. My name is Ashraf Garda. Welcome to the show. You can connect in many different ways. 086 000 2032 to call in live. You can send us a voice note or text message via WhatsApp 0614 104 107. And if you're part of that growing army of people that always posts on social media, Facebook and on the Twitter X platform, as well as WhatsApp, to say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I'm listening from such and such a place. And often they will send a picture. Well, if you're one of them, please continue doing so. And if you haven't done it, well, here's your chance. Let's, however, pick up an issue that in many ways does have a huge impact on the pulse of the nation. It's about the issue of undocumented or illegal foreigners and the costs of it and what that means. And certainly the African Transformation Movement have a position on this issue. So let me just give you some perspective. You may be aware that the Department of Home Affairs confirmed they've spent more than 52 million rands in 5 months. Just 5 months, 52 million rands spent. And why? To deport 19,000 illegal foreigners. So the cost of finding these foreign nationals were now confirmed illegal and therefore get sent back or packing out of the country. That transportation transfer cost has amounted to 52 million rands in under 6 months, 5 months in fact. Okay, let's get the thoughts of the African Transformation Movement because they have a position on this. Zama and Chona with me, the spokesperson there. Zama, thank you for connecting. You are connected indeed to the National Pulse.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to you and the listeners.
Thank you. Right. So firstly, let's stay with a narrow 52 million rands spent on deporting illegal foreigners. What do you make of that?
Let's start by saying, as the African Transformation Movement, we believe that deportation should form part of addressing the problem, but we believe that it is not the first step. The problem that, in fact, what actually contributes to that is that when you look at the number of immigrants that we deported between 2012 and 2016, there are about 369,726. And we are sitting today with an estimated amount of about 5 million immigrants in the country. Now, which means that though we actually took close to 20 times the 19,000 immigrants that we deported right now, we have actually not solved the problem. So for us as the African Transformation Movement, though we know that it is a necessary undertaking, but it becomes fruitless if you are not going to start by closing the borders so that when you deport, no one comes in.
Okay, I hear you, but I mean, remember we have a new administration now, right? In terms of the seventh administration with a very different sort of government. So yes, I understand that. I mean, you're not the only one saying so. Many parties believe so, and even people from other different parties, opposition and those in government certainly have their opinion. But in terms of processes, you have to deal with what you have at the moment. And what you have now is the discovery of many, many undocumented foreigners. So you want to send them back. You can't keep them here while you're trying to close the borders.
No, the problem is this. If you do not start by closing the borders, they get there tomorrow, they tell others that there is life in South Africa, and they walk right across, and they come back. So it becomes a futile exercise to do that. So I think one of the issues that we need to prioritize is we are reading society of people who do not want to be law-abiding citizens or individuals who want to coexist with South Africans the legal way. It is to make sure that as we deport them, we have already have contingency measures to ensure that there is no influx back into the country. Remember that these people willingly left where their places of birth and came to South Africa. There must be something about South Africa that even when you deport them at no cost to them, they would still come back to South Africa for.
I understand that. Yeah. I mean, at its very nature, it is a very complex situation. Nobody moves to another country just willy-nilly because they got nothing better to do. I think we understand the complexities, okay? But then we have our own complexities. So let me take it first things first. When you found out that 52 million rands was spent on deporting the current grouping of illegal foreigners that were found out and then sent home, what did you feel about that cost?
We felt, as the African Transformation Movement, looking at the history of deportation, that it was a futile exercise. It's not assisting anyone. You have to not only deal with the intricacies of this if you want this to be fruitful, but you have to actually examine at if I throw 52 million rand at this problem, in 6 months' time, will I still be faced with deporting the same people, or will I be looking at another group? Okay. And for us, looking at the history, we are not looking at another group. So this is why we are not happy by the fact that the ministry jumped for deportation without ensuring that we deal with the other factors. And there are other factors, not just the porous borders.
Okay, we'll talk about let's talk about the other factors in a moment and the porous borders, but let's just stay with the amount that have been deported, right? So should we, according to you, then not deport those that are being deported right now? Should we have let them remain in the country?
At this stage, there are more pressing issues. I agree that there is nothing more pressing than the displacement of our people in the various sectors of employment. What maybe we could do there is to enforce laws and make sure that illegal immigrants do not get jobs in South Africa, so that they do not see South Africa as a haven for anything. If there are illegal immigrants in the micro sector, in the township economy and the rural economies, let's squeeze and actually make the environment not conducive and not habitable, to speak. So
but then you have another problem. So, for example, you're saying don't send them home. So if you don't send them home to their home countries, you keep them here, but still free to stay where they are. But you're saying effectively don't give them jobs, which means they're unemployed, and that can only cause further rifts in society. And when people are unemployed, that, as we know statistically, can give rise to increased crime rate.
Why would we want to prioritize foreign nationals when we have 61% of our population that is dependent on grants, 70% of our young people who are jobless, even though some of them are qualified, 54% of our population, expanded definition, who are without jobs? The issue of prioritization of South Africans within their own country must be the priority of a South African government that has been put in place by South Africans.
Okay, I hear you, but I want to give you. I hear you, but I just want to give you a football analogy. You know, if the priority is to score a goal, but in the meantime, if the ball goes out of play and you need to throw in, at that point in time, you can't continue playing the game until you get the ball in and get the ball thrown into play. So in this case here, the priority is not in dealing with the illegal foreigners. The priority is to give more jobs to the citizens of our country. But you do have an illegal foreigner problem in the country. You do have to deal with it. You can't just ignore it.
This is why we have different directorates, which allow for parallel processes addressing the same issue. So what the left hand is doing, the right needs to know, because the center understands the coordination and the objective. So whilst the Department of Labor deals with issues of employment and enforcement of laws, the Department of Home Affairs needs to deal with issues of porous borders, criminality and corruption within the Department of Home Affairs, and issues of deportation. But what we are saying is that as you are dealing with that, deal with it in such a way that you do not find yourself repeating the same process again as we have done. What we did between 2012 and 2016, where close to 400,000 people were deported, and that has not actually yielded the kind of fruits that we wanted. We're saying, we're cautioning against going the same route. Insanity is defined as doing the same thing, the same way, with the same results, but you do not see if you need to actually tweak the process. Okay. Let's learn from what actually transpired, so that we do not fall into the same trap.
Okay, many may concur with your last point to say, and I hear what you're saying. You send them home, and because they're so impoverished, they come back, within a few months or a few weeks later. So I hear that part. So let's move on then. How then do you deal with the porous borders? You said you've got some solutions. How do we deal with that?
Thank you so much. One of the oldest tricks in the book when you go from one country to the other is to actually build strong barriers, whether you say it is a fence with a fence, maybe not as far as a wall, but a fence that prevents people from coming in. Not only that, we know the parts where the South African border is coming in contact with a border of another country, and we know that those are the entry points. Fortify there, put cameras there, ensure that border control is there, ensure that they are fully equipped with the necessary machinery, with the necessary vehicles, and the force is enough. For instance, not so long ago, the same ministry was saying we don't have enough money to fund border control. Now, as you say, you do not have enough money to fund border control to stop the influx. You are redirecting those funds to actually dealing with the issue of deporting when hundreds of thousands are coming in on a daily basis. So it's counterproductive. So we feel that those are some of the things that we need to do. So ensure that you fortify. From fortifying, ensure that you have the border control that is fully functional, well equipped, then come inside Home Affairs.
Okay, I hear all of that, right? So what then about other internal policies? So in dealing with in this case, still an undocumented foreign national and a documented foreign national, someone who's here very legal in the country in the midst of our unemployment crisis. What's your solution to that?
All right. One, African Transformation Movement is open to individuals who want to come in the country legally. But there are classifications. For instance, you can't come seeking employment in a sector that does not possess special skills, or in a sector where we have in abundance. So if you come with something we do not possess, South Africa is open for business. If you come to South Africa and invest that 5 million rand and employ 60% of your workers being South African, come to South Africa. But what we are against, it is an issue of people who come to occupy the very sectors where we have abundance of skill, or they require limited skills or no skill whatsoever. And with a pattern that we have of high unemployment, we find ourselves displaced in our own economy.
So quick yes, no, as we wrap up. Do you then agree with Herman Mashaba of Action SA? I spoke to him before the elections, and he made the point that you can't employ a bus driver as a foreign national because that is an area where we have an abundance of skill. Why would you get someone from another country to be a bus driver? Do you agree with that? Yes, no, very quickly.
Yes, we totally agree. Bus drivers, tellers, babas, cooks in restaurants, waiters. Look, we've got abundance of that. Why would we take from another country to come to South Africa? Right. So for us, the African Transformation Movement, truly unnecessary.
Thank you for your time, Zama and Sean. I've certainly got us thinking on a range of issues in terms of how we deal with foreign nationals, legal and undocumented. Zama is the spokesperson for the African Transformation Movement.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul?
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
fizzy drinks and fruit juices are making our kids sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, leading to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they get older. We need to protect our kids from all sugary drinks. Demand a stronger health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
It's Volley Weekend on a high note with final analysis on Sunday night. The premium wrap-up show, giving you match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch final analysis every Sunday at 8 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and 10 p.m. on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We've Got It All. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Namibia and Seychelles both want their presence felt when they meet at 12 midday, while Mzansi's Banyana confront neighbors Eswatini at 3 p.m. This is the doubleheader of the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Women's Championship. Catch both matches on Friday, 25 October, live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
It's a big question to ask, right? What for you moves the national pulse today? What are the big driving forces? You tell me. Right, make a note of this now. Customers, you know the story, we've been talking about this with Eskom, that customers using prepaid Eskom meters must recode meters by the 24th of November, right? So all Eskom customers are reminded to recode their prepaid meters before the 24th or else, right? Because if your meter is not recoded, it will not accept legally bought prepaid electricity tokens. Eskom is trying to simplify the whole process. What they've done is you now can pre-code all meters, and they are ready for you to recode your meter, and you can do it yourself, right? To do this, you need to go to any Eskom-approved electricity outlet and buy an electricity credit token. And the Eskom teams themselves are on standby to help you.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's talk about the Global Watch feature we do every day. And today it's the turn of Mozambique, the European Union. They've been observers to that Mozambican election. Remember, they say they've got evidence that's been found of irregularities regarding counting and unjustified alterations of election results at some polling stations and district level in Mozambique. So what does that mean? Halio Golishi is with me, a political analyst based in Mozambique. Appreciate your time. You are now connected to the National Pulse.
Thank you. And again, thank you for inviting me for this interview to discuss political context in Mozambique.
Thank you. Let's get to the first things first in terms of what has been uncovered.
See, this process has started with a lot of suspicious environment, where there are strong evidence of tremendous fraud happening and some irregularities that undermined the process while the process was starting. So from the beginning, we saw that the environment was not that good. And after the conclusion of the process, the opposition parties started claiming that there was strong evidence of fraud, and then they would not accept freely the results. And the main ask is that they are demanding for the comparisons between the official results and the parallel counting that they have taken from the process that started with the election and voting.
Okay, so what has been, so you obviously, speaking from an EU perspective, are observers. In terms of your findings, how much teeth and muscle does your findings have? Meaning, how much weight does it carry?
See, EU observers has played an important role, but lastly, their speech are being the same. They condemn the irregularities, the fraud, but somehow then they used to accept the results freely, arguing that the sovereignty of the state must be respected. In fact, Mozambique is a sovereign state, but when we are in front of some strong evidence of frauds, democracy can be undermined, and other irregularities can be also put on the table that will make the process not very much transparent and not the very much like in terms of what we desire as a people, what we aim from the polls are not being reported by the electoral institutions.
Okay.
So
yeah. I take it that the electoral institution has not commented on this as yet, or have they?
Electoral institutions are working together and very closely with the main party, which is Frelimo. And they are not respecting the people's desire that people expresses within the polls. So even if we are waiting for the results, we will see that despite the strong evidence of fraud, electoral institutions, starting from the Electoral Commission and other institutions, they are not respecting, they are not showing the justice from the people desire. So opposition parties are ready to claim and take this process for the other institutions and to other levels of legitimacy.
Okay, how much, if they claim, how much of weight does that carry? And I say that because there's also been, allegations that the votes this time around has been rigged, and there's been alterations as well, or allegations against the ruling party Frelimo. They've been around there for a long, long time. So the point is, you mentioned that Frelimo is sort of friends with some of the regulation authority. The big question, Danny, is that all-important phrase, free and fair. I mean, would we be in a position where one can say emphatically, yes, the election results will be free and fair, or not?
We are far for affirming that electoral results, final results that will be announced tomorrow are transparent and are free. For the very first time, opposition, you see, over the years, opposition have been claiming from the results, but they were not able to prove. For the very first time, they utilized the kind of parallel system of counting votes, even before the final scrutiny results. So what they did from the polling, from the operation phase, they used to copy the stamped electoral bulletins, all the evidence they have collected, and sent for a central that were about to validate that. So now, even without the final pronouncement, what they did, they announced that they have a clear advantage from the Frelimo party.
Okay, just the last thing on the Frelimo before I let you go. What do you think would be the likely result? Do you see Frelimo has been in power for a long time, close on to half a century, declining and actually losing power, or is that far-fetched? Very quickly.
Seems that there will be a shift from the opposition party. Podemos, which is a new party, they have gained some sympathy from the electoral people, and now what is happening is that Renamo and MDM, they are no longer being as a clear position to claim as a second opposition party.
Okay.
So we are hoping that Podemos can claim the first position. In case of no, they will be certainly the second position party.
That's where we're going to leave it to Halio Gulisha, the political analyst based in Mozambique, commenting on election observers working for the EU, saying evidence has been found of irregularities around vote counting in that Mozambican election. The results are out tomorrow. Let's get the news headlines, Jes Madupi.
Thank you very much, Uncle A, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has commended the officers as well as a private security involved in the swift arrests of the 7 suspects involved in the robbery at Clearwater Mall in Roodepoort. Another suspect, believed to be part of an alleged diamond investment scam, has been arrested, bringing the total number of those nabbed in the matter to 9. And there's growing pressure on Mozambican authorities to identify the killers of a lawyer who worked for the main opposition's presidential candidate. And those are your headlines. A full news update at 4 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Buccleuch has a crash reported after Marlborough Drive, and the N3 northbound in Edenvale has a stationary vehicle reported after Linksfield Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound slow moving towards Spaghetti Junction, the N3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg is queuing towards Market Road exit, the N3 eastbound in Marion Hill is slow moving into Marion Hill Plaza due to plaza operation issues, and Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound is queuing towards Rhodes Drive, the M5 northbound slow moving through the N1 Kuburg interchange, the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Lower Church Street, and the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Chumi, let's talk cricket, our men's team in action, right?
Absolutely. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. While bad weather saw only 58 overs bowled on day 3 of the ongoing test match between the Proteas and Bangladesh, Bangladesh reached 283 for 7 at stumps in their second innings, and Mahidi Hassan Miraz contributed 72 runs from 134, with J.K. Ali hitting 58 from 111 balls. Meanwhile, the Joburg Super Kings have added fast bowler Hadas Viljoen to their squad as a replacement to the injured Lazard Williams. In football, CAF President Patrice Motsepe has reiterated his previous stance that they will not tolerate the lack of sportsmanship behavior that has been practiced in African football for a long time. Motsepe says that the recent unfortunate incident between Nigeria and Libya, which saw the Super Eagles boycotting the 2025 AFCON qualifier because they were stuck in a Libyan airport for over 20 hours, was very unfortunate. And Motsepe says that this matter is still under investigation and appropriate action will be taken.
One other quick issue that we should have zero tolerance. And I'm not going to express any comment, because when there was this problem with the Nigerian national team in Libya, and I will not comment on that because there's a proper investigation, but I want to emphasize a principle that we will not tolerate, because this is something that has been going on for quite some time. Your national team, let me emphasize, forget about the Nigeria and Libya situation, because that process has been properly investigated and appropriate action will be taken. Appropriate action will be taken.
Well, looking forward to hearing which action CAF is going to take against whoever is at fault with regards to this one. However, a lot of cases that we hear around Africa and African football. In the meantime, SuperSport United head coach Gavin Hunt has expressed his concerns about the club's inability to compete in the transfer market, arguing that he could win the league if given the checkbook to sign players. SuperSport are experiencing a rough patch. They have conceded 6 goals in 2 matches, lost their last 3 and scored only 1 goal in the last 6 games. Obviously, their most recent defeat being to Orlando Pirates yesterday. And head coach Gavin Hunt hopes that they will turn the corner soon.
Coming off the back of Saturday, so that certainly put us on the back foot a little bit, well, a lot. And then we settled down. We had couple of scary moments. I don't know if the goal was offside. It looked like it was offside for the one we scored. And I thought the second half we were really good. Went at them, tried, obviously we tried to, didn't just try to see the game out. So, and then you get caught on the break like that. And, so the score, same thing happened Saturday. We chased it. Just unfortunate. But, we've got to get through this period.
Well, there's some Betway Premiership fixtures to look forward to tonight. Mamelodi Sundowns host Royal AM, and Stellenbosch is away to Chippa United. Then moving on to basketball, LeBron James says that this morning's match will be one to remember. The 39-year-old and Bronny James made history, becoming the first father and son to play alongside each other in a regular season fixture as the Los Angeles Lakers defeated Minnesota Timberwolves 110-103.
It's a lot of excitement, just pure joy, to be honest, to be able to come to work every day, put in the work, hard work with your son, every day, and be able to see him continue to grow. We push each other. He pushed me, I push him. We push our teammates and vice versa. So just a very joyous, moment for not only for myself but for our family, and starting here today with Media Day. We've been in a couple photo booths, did an interview over there with Spectrum. That was pretty cool. So it's pretty awesome. Gives you a lot of life. It gives you a lot of life, especially when you're around young guys. I had a lot of fun, this summer with Ant-Man and Tyrese Halliburton and some of the young guys on the team. And they give you a lot of energy, a lot of life. So to be able to be alongside him, he's 19 years old, be 20 soon, gives you some more life and the rest of the young guys on the team. So it's awesome.
Moving on to rugby, World Rugby is set to crack down on players shielding teammates during high ball situations. This is following a set of objectives shared with referees and coaches ahead of the upcoming November test. During that November test match, where the Springboks will face Scotland, England and Wales, a spotlight will be placed on box kick defence, particularly on the retreating defenders known as escort runners, who may face stricter officiating for obstructing players from chasing high kicks. And previously, defenders were deemed legal as long as they did not deliberately change running lines to block a chaser. Finally, in tennis, Emma Raducanu has pulled out of next week's Hong Kong Tennis Open. This is through injury, and she says that she's hoping to be fit in time for the Billie Jean King Cup. On that note, it is a wrap from my side.
I want to check with you. I don't have the answer, but here's the thought. Often in sport, if a person excels in a certain sport, then a family member would have the similar genes, as you just mentioned in your NBA report, right? Yeah. But I wonder in South Africa, in the main sports, cricket, rugby, and football, right, how many players are there where their parent, in this case it's mainly male, I understand that, but it could be female as well as things change now, where the father has excelled and then the son has come through and excelled to an equal level, if not better.
There is in football. I'm just trying to think of the top of my head, but I know that definitely.
Which is not the same as how many have played the game, because one thing is they've played, but the other is have they excelled to that level, or have they just been by the way,
I get you.
Yeah. Think about it. I don't know. I'd love to know. In all sports, by the way, right? More sports and those family heritage tree coming up with Tumi in an hour's time.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said...
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed Dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Baye!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
The Danes on Banyana Banyana are meeting for the very first time. The 12th world-ranked women's national team want to triumph on home soil. However, African champions have a different notion in mind. They want to be the victors on foreign ground. Europe clashes with Africa. This is the international friendly, red and white versus green and gold. Catch the breathtaking clash between Denmark and South Africa on Friday, 25 October at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Get ready, Mzansi. The jaw-dropping 82 million rand estimated Lotto jackpot is your chance to take home big millions this Saturday. Don't delay. Play Lotto for an estimated 82 million rand jackpot today for your chance at an unforgettable win. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2BA is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, it's the National Pulse. So what for you moves the National Pulse? Is it Yanni? I think it is Yanni. I hope I pronounced it correctly. In Naledi. Go ahead. What's your thoughts? Yanni, hi. You're live.
I hear this guy saying they're having a problem deporting, but my question is what have they been doing for the last 8 years? Because they spend nothing to try to deport. Because they let these people to come without even expecting them, doing nothing. So what have they been doing for the last 8 years if they complaining about 52 million? And again, he's saying the employers should not hire these illegal foreigners. Then crime is going to go up much.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they're going to stay here, he's basically... But just remember, he's speaking on behalf of the ATM. He's not the ruling party. There's the difference, right? But in terms of their position, he's saying, keep them here, don't send them back, but just don't give them jobs. And I completely concur with you. You don't do that, well, that's another powder keg. You certainly don't want to light up. Not at all. Thanks for that call, Yanni. Right. We're going to chat to Patrick Bond about some of the issues from the BRICS Summit right after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so you know that the BRICS Summits are underway in Russia. A year ago it was in South Africa. But here's the thought. One thing that's different from the last BRICS Summit to now is up to now it was 5 countries. Now it's like, 9 or is it 10? And potentially a whole lot more, right? So many countries applying, wanting to get involved. What's the appeal of the BRICS? And how does this change things, perhaps, going forward? Professor Patrick Bond with us, political economist and distinguished professor of sociology at the University of Joburg. Well, if Bond doesn't know, who else will? Good chatting to us. Thanks for connecting.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Ashraf, and hi to the listeners.
Thank you. So first things first, the fact that we've almost doubled up in terms of where we were as the BRICS a year ago, and with the potential of even going further ahead. What sort of challenges does that provide? It may be a good thing, but it also provides challenges, right?
Well, let's start with that quick question that you hinted at with your confusion and Vladimir Putin's confusion. Is it 9 or is it 10?
Yes.
And the reason that's up in the air is that Saudi Arabia didn't quite accept the invitation that it should have on January 1 this year. And the absence of Mohammed bin Salman, its crown prince, the leading political figure, is very telling. And so they've sent the Saudi foreign minister. And here's the thing. On November 5th, a couple of weeks from now, if Donald Trump wins, I don't think we're talking 10. We're talking only 9. I think, unfortunately, Mohammed bin Salman will say, no, my future is with the Trump-led United States. If Trump loses, they may actually formally join. And as you know, there's 10 technically invited. The 11th from last August here, Argentina declined. But there are 36 altogether, so another 26 waiting in the wings, but they won't join this year. Vladimir Putin thought that just chewing the existing, let's say, additional members would be a very, very serious task, and it has proven to be with, for example,
okay, so let's deal with what we know, right? So at the moment we've got, to borrow a Harry Potter phrase, we've got 9 3/4 and maybe not, right? I don't know. On that basis, how are things changing right now?
Well, now we've got, I would argue, especially if Saudi Arabia does join, a seriously climate-destructive bloc. This is 29% of the world GDP in these 10 countries, again, assuming Saudi Arabia joins, but 51% of greenhouse gas emissions. And this is important next month when there's the 29th meeting of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, this is the biggest issue of all, where the BRICS could be very constructive. Xi Jinping, for example, having turned off coal-fired power plants along the Belt and Road, that affected Musina Mikado, our special economic zone in Limpopo, which wanted a 4,600 megawatt coal-fired power plant. They're not going to get it. That's the sort of power that you can witness in some of the BRICS states. However, the big debate is whether there'll be a de-dollarization in this meeting that's worth the name. And my fear is it's not. I would like to see de-dollarization. I happen to work in the United States Federal Reserve. It definitely does not deserve the power to print money, quantitative easing, or to raise interest rates, as it did a couple of years ago, creating debt crises all over the poor countries, including Ethiopia, which defaulted, Egypt, and our own debt crisis in a sense. Now, that really depends on whether our finance ministry, our Reserve Bank, our big banks, and those of the other major financial centers across the BRICS, in Sao Paulo, in Mumbai, in Shanghai. Moscow, obviously, Tehran have a different agenda because they're shut out of SWIFT, the interbank system. But if what we saw last year, Ashraf, was Sim Chabalala from Standard and Laseko Kanyako from the Reserve Bank and Enoch Godongwana, the finance minister, they basically scotched the idea of de-dollarization. And the reason is simple. Unfortunately, Johannesburg is too oriented to New York. And this is the case also in Shanghai, where the BRICS New Development Bank was so frightened of getting a bad credit rating that they put Russia under sanctions in March 2022 after Putin illegally invaded Ukraine. It's complex, and the power of New York is regrettably formidable.
So that's quite interesting. So I mean, at the moment, what I understand is it's not so much the launch of a BRICS a currency, because I think that's premature, but certainly I think what's come through is the BRICS countries trade with each other. So it is a de-dollarization, but trade with each other in their local currencies. How practical is that?
It would be wonderful to do that. They're looking for a bridge mechanism that would make some let's say, ethereal alternative to the dollar, because it hasn't worked as you just described it. Let's just take the most extreme case where Russia exported massive amounts of cheap energy to India. Since 2022, India didn't have any worry about sanctions on this cheap oil and gas at a time, as you remember, massive increase in energy price. But the problem is that the rupee, let's say, revenues that you'd expect then to become rubles normally would be mediated through the dollar, through the international markets. And without that, unfortunately for Russia, they've got a lot of rupee assets stuck in India. They don't have things to buy from India. There's a trade deficit that India suffers with Russia, which means the financing is very, very difficult. They're going to need some medium of exchange, whether they can find one that's genuinely accepted by all these different kinds of countries, different economies and different central banks, different exchange control regimes. I sort of doubt, unfortunately, this is what's needed as a first step. And what we really need is a way to avoid so much dependence on the dollar for foreign reserves, for the international currency that is, in a sense, the ability of the US, its hegemony over the world economy, because they just can print money, unlike any other country.
Okay, let's move on to another thing. Whether we've got 10 countries or potentially 30 countries down the line, right? What does it do for the BRICS?
It would make it a powerful, let's call it, alternative pole. The dilemma, though, Ashraf, I think, is that there's an expectation that this pole will be an alternative to the West, and maybe even in some areas anti-Western. Obviously, the Ukraine invasion is one where there's two very clear sides. Israel, not so much, because the 9 out of 10 BRICS, with the exception of Iran, have major trading relationships with Israel. So it's ironic. Most advanced country in terms of calling out genocide by Israel is South Africa, yet South Africa is the #1 coal exporter through Glencore and African Rainbow Minerals, the #1 coal exporter to Israel, fueling the genocide. That's the contradictions. Therefore, I would often look at the concrete activities of BRICS countries, say within the IMF, the World Bank, World Trade Organization, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Frankly, having looked at this probably as much as anyone, I find them not anti-imperialist, but sub-imperialist, meaning they are not against, but they're within, and they by and large benefit from a global value chain in which BRICS companies appreciate IMF and World Bank to enforce the sort of laws of the land of global capital.
Okay, and here's a quick soundbite answer. The fact that we may go up to 30, would it be a case of too big, too hot to handle? Very quick answer.
Too diverse, too many internal conflicts. They've not even started the big one, China and India in the mountains where they regularly clash, or Egypt and Ethiopia over water. Big conflicts within the BRICS. And they can paper them over from the standpoint of public relations and a lot of hype. But ultimately, these are very different economies. And let's say human rights violations and all of the kinds of dilemmas, the climate catastrophe, the geopolitical turmoil, it makes for a very incoherent organization.
Let's leave it at that. Incoherent organization, says Professor Patrick Bond, political economist, distinguished professor of sociology at UJ. Appreciate your time. This is the National Pulse.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
What a day. Time for that face mask. Leave the face mask on for 2 minutes. 2 minutes? That's not even enough time for it to work. I can't even send an email in 2 minutes or make a cup of coffee.
With Santam, 2 minutes is enough to insure your car online. When you're fully protected with the expert insurer, you're free to live in the moment, not in the worry. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
So this is important news. The Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, that's PRASA, right? Well, they reopening passenger rail lines that were severely affected by infrastructure damage and cable theft. And these numbers are interesting. 31 out of 40 priority lines are now fully operational. 266 stations are fully functional in cities across the country. And the Caballo train factory has manufactured 246 trains. Half of these are already being utilized by PRASA, which has completed 35 million passenger trips across different regions to date. And the message certainly from PRASA, doing more together, building better infrastructure and delivering efficient service through collaboration. The message brought to you by the National Department of Transport.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, there's been a story doing the rounds about arrests around unpolished diamonds. I understand there's more arrests that have been made against those involved in dealing with these unpolished diamonds and issues of fraud. The suspects were arrested in Gauteng and Northwest provinces. And here's the story. The mastermind allegedly advertised unpolished diamonds on social media, of all places, and then invited potential investors to invest in his alleged diamond dealing business. Okay. Let's uncover all of that with Colonel Philani Nkwalazi, the spokesperson for the Hawks. Appreciate your time, Colonel Nkwalazi. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon to you and listeners. Thank you for having us. Much appreciated.
Okay, give us a backstory to this entire story. What is it?
All right. So basically, the investigation ensued in 2019. Of course, people invested a lot of money believing that they will get lucrative returns on their investments, and which never happened. And of course, the matter was then investigated in the Northern Cape. That's when the investigation ensued. Then, of course, more victims came forward, and as we have mentioned, that the total amount surpasses 4 billion. Since 2019. So starting yesterday, the suspects were arrested in Benoni, others were arrested in Northwest, Koster, Hartsvater, and of course Pretoria. So a total of 9 suspects were rounded off and arrested between last night and early hours of this morning and towards midday today. And those suspects are due to appear in the Bronkhorstspruit Magistrates Court tomorrow. The charges, they range from fraud, money laundering, theft, and racketeering, because this was an enterprise. They operated as an enterprise. And of course, we were not working alone on this investigation. This was a prosecution-guided investigation. We worked hands and gloves with the NPA. So, of course, the monies, of course, were intercepted in various platforms, and that led to the arrest that we had in this today.
Okay, and you're saying they're appearing in court tomorrow, yeah?
Bronkhorstspruit,
right. So at this point in time, they are nameless, right?
Of course, the Criminal Procedure Act prevents us from mentioning, their names before they appear before court. Although some media outlets were mentioning, but of course we can't deny or confirm any of the names that are amongst the suspects.
Yes, I certainly have seen that. What for you? Let's go back to my introduction. It talks about the original suspicion came about via promoting their wares on social media. Is that really what happened?
Yes. The syndicate were involved in the unpolished diamonds, and they allegedly advertised the unpolished diamonds on social media, and people invested in this, and to their surprise, they never got the returns from their money. That's when complaints came forward and the investigation was done. And of course, we in the process of investigation, we tried to follow the money. Of course, working in concert with the NPA, we managed to block some of the platforms where the money was actually transacting. And the allegations are that they continued with other platforms. But of course, where we have evidence, we are quite confident that we have a strong case against the suspect.
What's the big lesson in this? I mean, the point is, what you said is that people invested in and responded to these Facebook call-outs, and only when they, after invested and then did not receive any returns on that or monies, that's when they went to the police, meaning they themselves took a risk. So with regard to, unpolished diamonds, what's and potentially bordering on other issues of fraud, what's the big alert for all of us when we see these type of adverts or call-outs?
Yeah, I think the most important message that listeners should look out for, if something is too good to be true, really it is. And particularly, we know a lot of companies, they do advertise on social media. But if social media is the only source of advertising for the company, perhaps you need to really zoom into the activities of whatever company or entity that does that. And of course, I'm really not a financial expert, but I would say people should actually look out for, reputable companies where your investment, at least, even if you do not get a lot of returns, but at least your investment is protected.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. If social media is their only presence and they're selling diamonds, really that should cause you an alert. Colonel Pilani in Kwalazi, appreciate your time, spokesperson for the Hawks. There you are. Tomorrow, Bronkhorstspruit will know exactly who are the 9 people who have been arrested, and they'll make an appearance there regarding their dealings in unpolished diamonds and fraud. As far as me responding to alerts daily, I tell you what, I get an email every day, and maybe you do as well. And then every day I've either won like $1 million, not rands, $1 million, or alternatively, some country in the world like Russia has uncovered that I have an inheritance that's waiting for me, and I've been told I just need to present myself with my ID documents or bank accounts, and then they will transfer the inheritance to me. I get it every day. Silly me, I'm too busy. I just don't respond. I hope you follow suit and do what I did, right? Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Madupi.
Mr. Garda. The top stories at 4. Minister commends police for the arrest of robbery suspects and alleged mass murderer killed in the Eastern Cape. A very good afternoon. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has commended the officers and the private security involved in the swift arrests of the 7 suspects accused of the robbery at Clearwater Mall in Roodepoort, west of Joburg. The heavily armed robbers stormed a jewelry store at the mall yesterday. A shootout ensued with the police, resulting in 2 officers and 3 suspects being wounded. Police say some of the stolen jewelry has been recovered. Spokesperson for the police ministry, Kamogelo Mogotsi.
Minister Mchunu says the swift action of all law enforcement agencies has once again shown our commitment to safeguarding our communities. This incident demonstrates that we are on the right path, as evidenced by the quick turnaround time in apprehending the suspects and the effective use of resources via the SAPS and provincial government choppers. The determination and bravery displayed by the officers, even in the face of armed resistance, is highly commendable.
The suspect in the mass murder of 5 people in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape has been killed during a shootout with police. He allegedly shot and killed 5 men inside a house at an informal settlement in New Brighton. Police say the deceased was the only suspect in the mass shooting. Nelson Mandela Bay District Commissioner Vuyisile Nxata.
As from last night, we were tracing and tracking the suspect because we're very fortunate to know the identity in terms of the name of the suspect. And today, the suspect was found inside the house. I want to believe that that's where he was hiding, and he tried to fight with the police, and the police retaliated and defended themselves. He was fatally wounded with his firearm lying next to him. So the suspect is therefore killed.
Several road closures and water supply interruptions are expected in some parts of Phoenix, north of Durban. The eThekwini municipality says that a major water supply reticulation upgrade project will start tomorrow and will run until 6 o'clock on Friday morning. Municipal spokesperson Gugu Sisilana says a section of Stonebridge Drive will be temporarily closed during this time.
Customers who are supplied with water from the Phoenix 1 reservoir are informed of a planned water shutdown. The water shutdown is necessary for the city's water operational team to work on Stonebridge Drive to finalize the reticulation upgrade project. This upgrade will interrupt water supply as well as result in the closure of several roads that will be barricaded for this work to be undertaken.
Two senior directors general, Lisolomzi Fikizolo and Chuma Phamodi of the Environment Department, are in a disciplinary hearing on a string of allegations, including financial mismanagement, corruption, and nepotism. The allegations revolve around the research vessel, the SA Agulhas 2. Independent investigators have been appointed for this week's hearings in Cape Town. One of the allegations is that Fikizolo illegally appointed his daughter and his brother-in-law. One of the whistleblowers says they've reported this through their labor union.
He has not only appointed her daughter, he also appointed within his ascendancy to the Deputy Director General, his brother-in-law as well. There are a number of other cases that were investigated by the forensic investigators, which reveals that there might be other people who might have been either relatives or associated with him.
And there's growing pressure on Mozambican authorities to identify the killers of a lawyer who worked for the main opposition presidential candidate. The funeral of Elvino Diaz has been taking place today. Presidential hopeful Venancio Mondlane, who has the backing of the opposition party Podemos, has already claimed victory and alleges that the killing of his aide on Friday night was politically motivated. The BBC's Camilla Mills.
Elvino Diaz was gunned down in his car in the capital Maputo on Friday. Tension is rising as preliminary results from this month's general election are expected soon. The president of neighbouring Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, who is the current head of the South African Development Community, has congratulated the ruling party even before the results are announced. Election observers working for the European Union say some voting results have been doctored. The opposition has called for protests on Thursday and Friday. On Monday, riot police fired tear gas and live rounds to disperse a crowd of angry demonstrators.
The top story this hour, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has commended the officers and private security involved in the swift arrests of the 7 suspects accused of the robbery at Clearwater Mall in Roodepoort, west of Joburg. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhalemele.
And coming up in news sports this hour, Netball South Africa announced squad for Sport Challenge International Test Series, and Australia great David Warner offers to come out of retirement for India Test Series. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N12 eastbound in Germiston has a crash reported before the Craft Road exit, and Santon Drive westbound slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive. In KZN, the N2 is road surface damage reported just west of Izolgowini, so there are delays and diversions possible. And Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N7 southbound is queuing towards Bosmanstown Markham Road. Bakencroft Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway, and Victoria Road outbound slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Amidst misinformation and disinformation, where can we find reliable news? Turn to radio, your trusted source for truthful updates. For over 3 decades, we've upheld integrity as a signatory to the BCCSA Broadcasting Code of Conduct. Count on us for news you can trust. Say no to fake news. Radio, keeping it real since day one. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters. Tune in, trust, and stay informed.
Okay, now make a note of this, right? So next week, SAFM will be hosting its annual Breast Cancer Awareness Roundtable. And that'll be covered live on the Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. That's Wednesday, the 30th of October, 2024. So next week at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Centre in Boksburg. So check it out. But for an opportunity, very importantly, to join the roundtable, well, you can email your name and surname and do it like ASAP to info@safm.co.za. You got that? info@safm.co.za.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, I know we've had some problem with our voiceovers, voice notes, really. And Vusani and Keys have said, hold it, I think it's all sorted out now. So we'll play them shortly. Lots of people have strong views on some of the issues we've mentioned or spoken about, including the BRICS numbers that have gone up, 9, 9.5, 10 maybe, or maybe up to 30 sometime soon, or de-dollarization amongst them. And, of course, some of the other big issues that we have covered, including the ongoing issue of undocumented foreign nationals, and the issue of that deporting 19,000 illegal foreigners has cost the country, the taxpayers, 52 million rands in a 5-month period. It leaves it open to you. You have an opinion. Of course you do have an opinion. What for you drives the National Pulse today, and what moves it? You tell me. 086 000 2032. Now, let's move on to another issue. We will be outside of election season, but we know that very soon we'll have another general election. Well, it's every 5 years, and that's going to come up before you even know it, isn't it? That could be a significant one. In the meantime, Build One South Africa's leader, Mmusi Maimane, has delivered the party's submission to the Electoral Reform Consultation Committee chair, that's Advocate Richard Sizani, on proposals to improve the country's electoral system. That's at the Home Affairs Ministry in Pretoria. Now, deadlines for submissions is the 31st of October. Now, you may remember, as part of Mmusi Maimane's election pitch, that was certainly one of them. So let's find out what was the actual versus the wish list from before. Mmusi, good chatting to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and thank you for having me on your show, and good afternoon to all your listeners.
Thank you. Of course, I wish we had half an hour. We don't. So perhaps maybe 3 key bullet points in terms of your submission. What are you saying?
Yeah, the first one is we need what is a multi-member constituency, and what that means is that if you live, for argument's sake, in Johannesburg, you can be represented by a few members of parliament that you can directly vote for, even though they belong to a party, but you get to know them. That's what in many ways enhances accountability, and you know that. That's the first instance. The second is we're asking for direct election of the president, because we are of the view that the president must work for the people rather than for the party. This way we can always ensure that no party conference that's held at any point would be able to tell us who our president is. We could be able to go to the polls and decide that. And then the third one is obviously that we want a body established that is similar to what Kenyans have got, that accepts all the coalition agreements. So in other words, those things are then made public, the citizens are aware of them, so that, again, to come back to Joburg as an example, you don't have a revolving door of mayors without ever knowing what were the reasons, what were the agreements. Otherwise, you'll end up with a culture of corruption without us knowing.
Okay. I'm trying to think as you talk about it, which one is the most important, and they clearly are all important, right? Let's talk about the last one first, this coalition agreements and the fact that it's not been public. I mean, that's been bizarre, right? I mean, clearly, has it been intentionally so that it's never been made public because it's a private deal between different political parties?
Yeah, I think, and that's the danger, right? It's all of these backroom negotiations. We don't even know what the manifesto of the cities then becomes. Neither do we know at the end of the day how the decisions have come to be made. All we get told is that, well, we're removing this man, the next one. And if I use Joburg as a central example, one could be criminally implicated, and then you don't even know why they are not being dismissed or whatever the case might be. This is public money, and the Kenyans worked out a system where they create a structure and a body where these can be held accountable for. In the same way as I have to make declarations of any other interests I've got, why can't political parties be able to find themselves in a space where these declarations are made public, citizens know, and we can hold them accountable to that plan so that it's not privatization of public resources.
Okay, I'm certainly for it being very, very public, but having said that, let me ask you, is there a downside to that? Is there a downside to revealing it, meaning that there are sometimes very, very confidential negotiations that take place that also happens, between employer, employee, and other organizations, and when they're public, they tend to compromise what has been decided. So is there a downside to this?
Well, in this instance, this is public money, so yeah, there may very well be, but if it was private money, fair enough. But this is South Africa's. This is Joburg. We are living with the consequences. We vote. And therefore, if things are being kept in the dark, away from citizens, they create the impression where ultimately either corruption or ultimately this instability of government continues. And so to me, I go, yes, if there are downsides, whether there's confidentiality or whatever, it must be such that we put things before the people, because the people themselves are feeling the consequences of it. It's yours and my rates money that's been used in municipalities. And at a national level, I think it will also be inviting. The upside is more and more people can say, if I know what the plan for coalitions is, here's my part to play. If I'm in business, here's my part to play. If I'm in whatever the industry I'm in, civil society, etc., I can collaborate. But if it just becomes a private deal, how do I invite citizens to say, hold me accountable to something, A, and B, how do I invite citizens to participate in that?
Okay, one of the things I've certainly have said often on this show in the run-up to the election was that, most parties have a manifesto, but they don't exactly tell us up front that if they fail to get the 50+1, which happens to every party this year round, right, they will not tell us who they're going to be part of a coalition with, and when we get rudely awakened, as we clearly have then found out, right, so that's a point taken. Let's talk about direct election of presidents. So let me understand this. At this point in time, we vote for political parties, in essence, right, and the party that has the most seats in parliament then can choose whoever they deem to be their leader. That's how it is right now, right? You want to change that?
Yeah, it is relatively like that, except with one caveat. It says Parliament can, amongst the 400 members, choose whoever. So in essence, you don't have to have the president coming from the biggest party. If all parties come to an agreement that member whatever can be a president, can be. What I'm saying is in that instance, generally you end up in a space where, like you've used the example of party politics, you may find yourself in a space where if the party chooses to recall an individual or does something, then you are none the wiser as a citizen. I am saying let's have a direct election of the president. All the SADC countries, Zambia, Zimbabwe, etc., all directly elect the president. The advantage of that is this, is that because our laws make it such that the president ceases on the day of being elected to become a member of parliament, it means they can operate independently from parliament. Secondly, it means that when they go to parliament to account, actually they are doing something that is not reporting to party members who voted them in, and therefore their interests are protected ahead of the people. And thirdly, ultimately, they derive their mandate from their citizens. So when they want to pass laws or whatever, they are focused first and foremost on the interest of the people rather than, in fact, party interests.
Okay, but would they be accountable to a party at all? That means would they then be put up as a representative of a party in this case here or not?
They could, but at the end of the day, they stand for a direct election. Because even if they were to part from that party in term, their mandate is not derived from the party, it is derived from the people. And that's an important issue because as things stand at the moment, if a president, let's think about it in the negative, if a president does something wrong, for argument's sake, they break a law or they suggest that a swimming pool can be a fire pool, all they need to do is go to a parliament and ask parliament to vote that in, which is what the case was, and the natural consequence of it is that we accept that as a report. If you want to eradicate state capture, where the president is captured by a few individuals and they can capture an entire organization, you want to free them from being able to do that. And our laws actually were going towards that direction and fell short by simply saying, okay, we'll accept the Westminster process or a process where Parliament itself votes for the president. But what I'm saying is that if we had a direct election of the president, the mandate would be different and the actions would be different.
Okay. Would it not be the downside of that? And I hear what you're saying, and I like the idea of a direct president, or a president directly elected anyway. Having said that, that politics is about influence, and that wouldn't that diminish the party political influence, and that is why parties won't buy into it?
Not necessarily, because at the end of the day, the president also has to sign in laws. So if you think about the US system, they have a direct election of the president, and the president has to go and work with the Senate to make sure certain laws are passed and make sure that when it's said and done, the accountability mechanisms work. At this point in time, what we have is a parliament that is almost, if you like, because of the kind of like a military frame of the issue, subservient to the president. You actually want the president to be subject or, in fact, accountable to parliament in that instance. And then the parties have still got profound power, because at the end of the day, if a president stood even for a direct election, they would still have some party appache that goes with it, because they'll need to collaborate with the executive or the legislature itself.
Okay,
and I would say in the long run, let's make sure even premiers or mayors are directly elected, because let's remind ourselves, these are citizens who work for us, not the other way around.
Okay. Well, is it fair to say then your third point, which was your first point about local representativity into parliament, is also another form of direct representation, right?
Correct. And there are three major competencies that sit within the national, that are only in the ambit of the National Assembly. Policing, mainly, healthcare and education. So if a school breaks down, no ward councillor can help you with that. If a police station doesn't work, no ward councillor can do that. So you need an MP to do that. And as things stand at the moment, you could be living in a community, in a city, where either of those things have failed and you've got no one to represent you. If you free politicians even from just being only loyal to parties, it means that when they want to vote with their conscience in parliament and defend the constitution, the party can't then say, if you don't toe our line, we'll just kick you out. It then reminds people that actually they are servants of the people. If there's a water bill being passed and your community doesn't have water, you can fight for that issue. And if there's not sufficient allocation towards that, you can vote against the budget, which means that actually you are asking the executive and anybody who's tasked with the responsibilities for the people to actually serve the people in that way. So I think these bills are focused on people rather than politicians.
Okay, here's a quick question from a listener, Thomas Frank, saying, how does BOSA envisage the president choosing his or her cabinet? Quick answer on that one.
It's the same as they would today. On any members of the executive, they could, but of parliament, they could. But an additional power would be that they could invite external expertise to come and serve on their cabinet. And then you don't end up with these bloated cabinets that we have. They could choose 12 people because they're not dependent on those people voting for them in any motion of no confidence, etc.
Okay, short answer. What happens next now? In terms of you've put forward a proposal or a submission, what happens next?
Submissions are going to be compiled on the 31st, and then a public consultation process starts in November, and we'll get a final report from this body sometime in May next year, I think, and then we'll come to Parliament. We must come there and vote to say, actually, we must amend this law.
And it's not based upon what percentage of votes you have right now. Don't answer that. I know that, because that would maybe throw you out completely. So that could change considerably. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Musi Maimane, the leader of BOSA, B-O-S-A, Build One South Africa. What do you make of that in terms of those recommendations, submissions made by that party to South Africa's in terms of electoral reform? Is it about time we have some serious electoral reform amongst them? What about directly electing your president? What about having those coalition arrangements been made public, so you know always. Think about that. This is the National Pulse.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does every electrical company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Get ready, Mzansi! The jaw-dropping 82 million rand estimated Lotto jackpot is your chance to take home big millions this Saturday. Don't delay. Play Lotto for an estimated 82 million rand jackpot today for your chance at an unforgettable win. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120*7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. eTuba is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
Right, here's some trivia for you. Did you know that since its establishment in 1998, right, SANRAL have expanded its national road network from 6,700 to 24,160 kilometers over a period of 5 years. Now, this all is done towards more efficient and safer roads. SANRAL are addressing pothole challenges on the SANRAL's provincial and municipal road network through Operation Vala Zonke, which is a pothole repair program. Now, the work is done in partnership with provincial and local governments. In the 2023-24 financial year, that's just for that 1 year, 9,392 potholes have been fixed through the Provincial Road Maintenance Grant. The department has transferred approximately 106 billion rands to the 9 provinces over a 10-year period for road quality improvements. And the message really is doing more together, building better infrastructure and delivering efficient service through collaboration. This message is brought to you by the Department of Transport.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, there's been lots of conversations around the Gauteng local government turnaround summit, right? And Gauteng today convening this Gauteng local government turnaround summit. It's a 2-day summit. What are the issues about? What are the big issues? What can we expect? Theo Montclair with me, spokesperson for the Gauteng Kochta MEC. Appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf.
Thank you. So what for you are the headline acts of the summit? What should we be expecting?
Theodore? Yes.
Yeah, just go ahead.
So
we lost you earlier on. Repeat that, please.
Apologies for that. I was saying that one of the main things that have come out, obviously, is that obviously we need to work together. And basically what informed us hosting this was we are moving away from a reactive sort of intervention into our municipalities. We know the state of our municipalities. And we believe that we need to have a more comprehensive and more strategic approach to the problems that are facing municipality as Gauteng, not just as individual municipalities. Because if there are some municipalities that are doing well from those other ones. So we were addressed by the Deputy Minister of Cooperative Government and Traditional Affairs, as well as the Premier of the province, as well as MEC Mamabolo, obviously. And the energy here is quite positive. In attendance we have all the local municipalities represented here. So at the moment, as I'm speaking to you, there are proclamations and the
Okay, I think we're really struggling with that line. Yeah, I just want to get a thumbs up from Keys. I think no. Let's see if we can reconnect. I'm not too sure. In the meantime, there could well be. In fact, Rohan's asked a couple of questions saying, I concur with Musi Maimani, more accountability from Rohan. Yeah, and in fact, earlier, Rohan, you asked a question saying, in this illegals issue, saying, how did they manage to leave their own countries legally? Presuming as they are not asylum seekers, then those countries should be billed for their own negligence, surely, Rohan. Rohan, in practice, you think that's really going to happen? So you're talking about the country being billed, not the individual. The country doesn't have the money, and the person won't have the money. what do they do? I mean, seriously, put down an acknowledgement of debt that they're certainly not going to meet once they leave the country. I hear you, but I can't see that happening. Theo, do we have you back on the line?
It sounds much better now.
Okay.
Apologies, this area is quite a sketchy area with network.
Well, maybe it should be put on the summit agenda. So, connectivity is all about just that, right? Yeah. Okay, so we lost the last part for you, but for you, therefore, and maybe I've missed this, so I'll just repeat it. What for you then would be the key outcomes you'll be looking forward in terms of taking issues forward coming out of the summit?
So what's important for us, obviously, is to just have a very holistic interventions into how municipalities are helped. So a piecemeal approach will not be something that we're looking for. So we want a more strategic, a more fuller approach to the problems that we have with our municipalities. That's the first thing. Obviously, issues of governance, issues of leadership, those are some of the issues that we are dealing with. Issues of community safety, as well as issues of financial prudence. Those are issues that we are seized with, and the commissions that are currently underway are discussing those details. So for us, really, why we have this summit here today is to just break away from the old way of doing things where we just react to all the problems. We know the Auditor General has told us the state of the state of the municipalities. We can't now repeat the problem and talk about the problem all the time and intervene sporadically. We have to have a much more strategic approach, and that is why we've called all the municipalities. We're excited tomorrow. All the mayors will be presenting their plans for the different municipalities in Gauteng. Being under one roof, that helps because they can learn from each other and they can benchmark. As you know, there are some municipalities like Midvaal who are doing very well, while others are struggling. So we want to see if we can augment some of the municipalities. For instance, Lesedi or Mfuleni is just next to Meyerton. And why is Meyerton doing better when Vereeniging is not doing better? So there are opportunities that we can explore there in making sure that we cross-pollinate through the municipalities that we have in our province.
Okay, well, wouldn't the answer to that question that you just put forward, or the hypothesis would be that very often it is dependent on which political party runs a certain region?
So in the roadshow that we were doing to different municipalities, one of the observations that was made in one of the meetings, for instance, the Midvaal. If you look at the Midvaal and who works at the Midvaal and the complexion of the people who work in the Midvaal, you might even argue differently that it's not really about that, but it's about getting those basics right. When you go to those municipalities that are doing well, you can see it from just entering the building that the building is clean. You are even directed to where you should go. When you go to others, when you compare, those basics are not being gotten right. So it's not about really the politics, and that's what we are stepping away from. We are trying to break away from that. We are saying that as Gauteng, if we want to be an area of investment, it starts with the municipality. Remember, a building, an office is at a municipality. So if we don't get it right at the municipality rate level, then it means that the province is going to continue to lose jobs and to lose opportunities. So once the municipality, the local government, sphere of government is assisted and supported, and we step away from finger pointing and comparing who's in which political party, we just work together, because if we work together, then it empowers the residents of that municipalities who may vote for one party or the other. So the politics really don't matter. What we need to do is to get Gauteng working and to make Gauteng very attractive to investors. And we believe that if we turn around the municipalities, that we will realize quite soon.
Well, I tell you what, we all want those municipalities turned around, not just in Gauteng, but around the country. We'll be starting with Gauteng because that's where we are. Theo Nkonki, appreciate your time, and let's hope we absolutely get that, because there's just too many issues that it filters down then into the streets of those communities. And I'm talking about CBDs of the various towns that make up provinces, be it Gauteng, but it could well be Western Cape, Northern Cape, wherever, right? And they, in many cases, are a disaster, and that's no good. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Madupi.
Thank you very much, Ntate Garda, and good afternoon. In your headlines at 4:30, the eThekwini municipality in KZN has been found to have breached the Municipal Finance Management Act. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has commended the officers and the private security involved in the swift arrests of the 7 suspects accused of the robbery at Clearwater Mall in Roodepoort, west of Joburg. And the media in Lebanon says Israel has begun airstrikes in the southern city of Tyre. And those are your headlines. Greg will have your full update at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Alexandra has a crash reported near London Road exit. All lanes are open, causing some delays. The N1 southbound in Sunninghill has a stationary vehicle reported near Rivonia Road, and the N1 northbound in Roodepoort has a crash reported near Main Reef Road Bridge. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle near Sabai Drive exit. The N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle reported after Spaghetti Junction. The N3 eastbound in Camperdown has a stationary truck near Blouse Road, and the R102 is slow moving between Old North Coast Road and the M25 Commercial Highway. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound in Paarl has vegetation alight after Jan van Riebeek. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N7 southbound is queuing towards Bosmansdam Road. One lane is open, and Victoria Road is slow moving through Camps Bay. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
All right, let's talk sport with Tumi. Tumi, you've got some news on netball squad, right?
Yes, Netball South Africa have announced a squad of 15 players for the Sport Challenge International Test Series against Malawi Queens. The team is captained by Khanyisa Chawani with the assistant captain Carla Pretorius, 2 of the most experienced players in the team. And then head coach Jenny van Dijk will announce a cut-down 12-player team on the 29th of October. And they will play on the 31st of October. But for the remaining 2 tests, which is on the 2nd and the 3rd of November, Van Dijk may make changes to her team from the original 15 squad players. In football, Mamelodi Sundowns midfielder Lebo Mabue says that he expects Royal AM, who remain winless in the Betway Premiership, to push back when they visit Loftus Stadium tonight. While the Brazilians have a perfect record in the league so far, their KZN side rivals have found the start of the campaign tough and come off the back of a 3-0 defeat away to Cape Town City in the Carling knockout. And Mabue had this to say about the fixture.
I think I'm expecting a big fight. I think they are a team that hasn't been doing quite well in the previous games. And as you know, any team that comes against us, they will be willing to sweat blood even, So they're not a team that looks to play a lot from the back. They play a lot from second balls, and if we can manage the second balls, I think we've got a greater chance in winning the game.
And just by the way, Ashraf, earlier on you were asking about the father and the son kind of a thing.
The father, the son, don't mention the third part. Just say that, yeah. Okay.
Well, Lebo Mabue actually, his dad, Sidwell Mabue, used to play for Orlando Pirates. And one that comes to mind also that I had forgotten about is Tebogo Mokoena, who plays for Bafana Bafana and Mamelodi Sundowns. His dad was Alexis Mdaung, and he used to play back in the days for Hellenic FC. So there you go.
Okay, and there's a couple. But here's the point, and I hear that, but there's still the extended part to say, not just played, but like absolute legends.
Oh,
right?
I see.
So, for example, like I think Jomo Sono's son also played, right?
Yeah, but you said not those, by the way. Played.
No, but that's my point. So I'm talking about where they are as good. I think we were speaking off air about Sean Pollock, who's the son of Peter Pollock. And both were preeminent forces as fast bowlers in world sport at the time. So it's that sort of example. But by the way, Chris Mania, I hope it's got right, or Mania maybe, I don't know, has just tweeted saying, several have a rich history. A.B. de Villiers family and A.B.'s older brother Francois, the Dupree family, talking about Karel du Plessis, would be Dupree rather. And then the 3 brothers, Robert, Dan and Jean-Luc. And that would be rugby, if I've got my facts right. And then talking about Makaya Intini and then his son Intanda. So Makaya, so his son is very talented.
That's a key one.
But we'll put it on pause until he's got. That's my point. He's got to get to the level of the father. Then we talk about them as being equal.
But do you not think he's going there?
No, but going there is not my point. I'm talking about.
Is he there?
Can we say look at the son. He's even surpassed his father.
I get you.
That's what I'd love that to happen, actually. Yeah. Okay, you've got more. Go ahead.
Well, there's still some fixtures to look forward to with regards to today. Chippa United host Stellenbosch FC. That is the Betway Premiership. Meanwhile, today will serve up 9 more tantalizing Champions League fixtures. The highlight of the night, Bayern Munich trip to Barcelona, a fixture that finished 8-2 back in the 2019-20 season. So looking forward to that one. But also Liverpool, Manchester City, Inter, Atletico Madrid and Bayer Leverkusen among the teams that are in action today, with a few minnows hoping to cause an upset. Elsewhere, FIFA have been accused of not paying the final part of agreed sums to players across Europe whose contracts have not been honoured by their clubs. A number of sources from different countries with knowledge of the situation say that while some players were made by footballers world governing body, the final one has not been paid, and many of the affected players are either unemployed or now retired, and the sums are said to be vital. The money was due to come out of FIFA's Fund for Players External, which was set up in 2020, and the outstanding payments were due in September 2023. In athletics, renowned South African long-distance coach Lindsay Parry has joined the Soweto Marathon to help promote the event and provide expert advice to runners. Now, Parry will form part of the Soweto Marathon Expo taking place on the 1st and the 2nd of November ahead of the highly anticipated race on the 3rd of November. Also serving as the official coach for the Comrades Marathon, she currently trains athletes like Adele Brookdijk and Pilani Buthelezi, and has previously coached former Comrades champion Shanae Bosman.
They got in touch with me last year when Africa Bank came on board, and it really looked like good stuff was happening at Soweto Marathon. So we were really keen to be involved. So we're not really involved at an official capacity, but just love the brand. So I've always loved Soweto Marathon. And so this year when they came and said, Lindsay, we need some help, do you mind giving a couple of talks? Will you be involved around the expo? I was like, I'm in, no hesitation. So I'm trying to get the team, because I've got a couple of coaches, trying to get the team involved to all come and run, even if it's the 10 or the 21. But yeah, that's our history of our involvement, and it's just such a iconic race for me in South Africa. It's one of those that I feel like if you're South African and you run, you should do Soweto at least once.
Meanwhile, finally, in cricket test opening great, David Warner has told Australian selectors that he's available to come out of retirement and play in the home series against India. The 37-year-old batsman said that he was dead serious about the offer to return for the 5-match Border Trophy series starting in Perth on the 22nd of November. Steve Smith wants to go back to number 4 in the batting order, leaving the selectors in search of an opening partner of Usman Khawaja. So it'll be interesting to see if David Warner will definitely be considered to come back. But before I say goodbye, Ashraf, I saw an interesting ex-post from the CAF media, head of media.
The word ex-post sounds like an expose, but fine.
Ex-post.
I know the X part. Yes. I'm saying a tweet rather.
Okay, let me just say.
It just sounds like an expose, yeah, but okay, got that.
And basically, he was just reflecting.
So wait, who's saying that? Sorry,
this is Luxolo September.
Okay,
the
Lux,
head of media, Lux, and he was just reflecting on the 3 years that Patrice Motsepe has been at the helm of CAF, and basically, what Motsepe has done is reduce the deficit from $49 million to $9 million. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
100% increase on financial support to 54 countries. 40% increase in prize money in CAF competitions, and also has impacted 800,000 boys and girls CAF schools championships. Obviously, we cannot forget the AFCON, how brilliant it was. So I can only imagine what the future holds for him if he's still going to stay on as the president of CAF, and how African football is going to grow in the continent.
And someone listening say, Ashraf, after your conversation with Musi Maimane, why would you not then have Patrice Motsepe for president with a direct election? Let me not get into that. You know exactly where we're going with that story, right? Yeah.
Actually, my husband was telling me when I was telling him about this, he was saying, don't you think this one particular organization in football would go far if Patrice Motsepe was at the helm?
Well, there you are. I'd leave it to the country, not the football. But anyway, there we are. All right, more sport in an hour.
And we we went on a water safari and Mom spotted a hippo and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed Dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king and the Zulu warriors chanting, Bayede!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, I'm going to take your calls in a few minutes' time. But in the meantime, here's Paswana Mpatlele, the Senior Accounts Manager at Makwe Fund Managers. Paswana, let's talk about famous brands and their results.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Looking into famous brand, the restaurant group franchise group, the results were mixed. Despite the volatile macroeconomic conditions they faced, they still provided steady performance. I mean, like just looking at the back of their profitability they have maintained. When you look at the HEPS up 9.5% thanks to the cost-saving efforts. The group revenue in line up slightly 2% thanks to contributions by their leading brands like Steers, Wimpy, Debonaires. But the significant brands that are of the higher end did not perform so well. Revenue down 10%, reflecting that spending is being under pressure. Manufacturing stable, retail sector they still slightly under pressure due to those spending coming through, but their outlook continues to look optimistically, cautiously looking up. Yeah, but it still hinges on the recovery of macroeconomic conditions. But the fact that we are seeing rate cuts in South Africa, inflation coming down, political stability, no load shedding, they are positioned to improve in the long term. But coming into the markets, Ashraf, then we're looking at a market where South African inflation rate has come down to 3.8%, a decline from 4.4%. This is positive news. Transport was down, food was down. Yes, it is a leading indicator, but looking forward, we're seeing that there is a trend that is coming down. Rate cuts can be possible in South Africa. Coming into November, it can range from 25 to 50, but local investors did not pay much or price much into this. They focused on the global developments of the seeing that bond yields are being priced higher. They are pricing out rate cuts. At least 2 rate cuts have been priced out, and this is at the back of inflationary concerns, at the back of global rate cuts, higher commodities, China stimulus, wars, trade wars possibly coming up after U.S. politics. This has helped the dollar then stay above that 104 level. Gold does not care. It has a positive correlation with the dollar and bond yields. It hit all-time record highs today, sitting at 2,750. On that existing uncertainty, when we talk of elections and deficit worries and debt worries, when we look at it from a global scale, oil prices recovered from their losses. They were up 0.5 at $75.50 a barrel, so hitting that tradable levels as we see some energy stocks getting some of the bidding from their lower levels. Equities in general globally, they are currently down. Dow is down 0.5, S&P down 0.5, Nasdaq down 0.7, FTSE down 0.3. Locally, you bring it down here, we're seeing ourselves down 0.1, dragged by profit-taking the resource sector, especially in those gold mining stocks that have been doing well. We see resources down 1.8. Industrial financials were up 0.3. Looking at the rand, it's generally worse off of that stronger dollar. We've seen the rand depreciated over 1% in the different currencies. Dollar against the rand against the dollar is at 17.78, rand against the euro is at 19.17, and rand against the pound 23 rand and 2 cents.
Okay, that's the update. We'll have another one from you guys and your team tomorrow, I know that, but another a market update coming up with Jimmy Moyaha, just about 50 minutes or so look out for that, right? Okay, let's get to your calls and voice notes after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
In fact, I was telling my wife, do you know what? That U.S. election is creeping up upon us, and we've almost seemed to have forgotten about it. I only really care about it because of the impact that it has on us. I mean, that's the reality. But I say that because Khotshane and Kronstadt, you've got a view on the U.S. election. Go ahead.
How are you?
I'm very good indeed, right? What's your point?
Look, following this election in South Africa, I decided to shift my focus to understand the U.S. elections and the two individuals that are running. And I have learned a lot, and including even the huge amounts of money being spent. And I think it is, I don't know how many times the budget of the whole of South Africa used by one individual. But my point that I wanted to talk about is the behavior of Donald Trump. I'm not a political analyst, but I believe that those who understand the behavior of a person like Trump will agree with me that Donald Trump is becoming a Hitler, he's becoming a Mussolini, he is becoming a fascist. And my understanding is that such behavior is not really welcomed in this day, in this 21st century. But I want to be selfish and say I want Donald Trump to win because Americans will be okay, but the world is not going to be okay. Looking at the behavior of Donald Trump and looking at what he has been saying all along, that he supports Putin, he likes the generals that whose behavior are just like Hitler. So the Americans are going to choose, if Donald Trump wins, they're going to choose the Adolf Hitler of the 21st century.
Okay, and therefore you want him to win. Don't wait.
I want him to win because I want to see what he is going to do to the world at large. The NATO is on risk.
All right. And that's your motivation. And that's your motivation. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I hear what you're saying. Khotshane, thanks for that call. Right, let's get to some of the WhatsApp voice notes, which we'll just play.
Afternoon, Ashraf, speaking to Speaker in Durban. You know, Ashraf, there is only party which is doing very great when it's come to deal with the issues which are very serious in the country. ATM, I'm not a member of ATM, but that organization, I can tell you, look at when they follow the case of Phala Phala, they dig deeper. You talk about the national foreigners who came in this country illegally. They are doing it. A lot of cases, they dig deeper while people, they don't want us to understand what's happening in the country. But that organization called ATM is doing very well. Thank you.
Okay, got that. The question is, why would you not vote for them? I'm just thinking about that. Here's another voice note.
Ashraf, Manzini from Ekukuletu. Kenukunen is busy chasing around people that are documented. Does he have a permission for that? And are those people deported? Or are they still sitting there in Joburg around in the CBD?
Well, my understanding is they have been determined to be illegal, therefore undocumented, right? And therefore been sent back. That's my understanding. Here's another.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Pito here in Asvater. Ashraf, is very simple. This thing of deporting these foreigners, no, illegal immigrants, no. Who's generating these bills? These bills that the president always sign, then there's an argument, blah, blah, then when it pass, the president sign it. Let the person generate the bill that if illegal foreigner is here, let them create the bill that if they found an illegal, undocumented foreigner here, he's going to be jailed so many months or years. Then let him generate the bill, then give the president to decide. Thank you.
Okay, well, there you are. That's an ongoing story. Here's another one we can play.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I fully concur, agree with ATM spokesperson. We just have to build. We don't have to deport those guys yet. We just have to build our borders and make sure that the employers, farmers, restaurants, everybody doesn't hire these guys. When we are done with the borders, then we can deport these people. Because it doesn't help. We just help them to go home and they come back.
Okay, there we are. Range of opinions. There's certainly more to come. Now, you know the story. Besides besides calling in, which you can do anytime, 086 000 2032, you can also voice note, as many have done. But you also have the option to tweet out and post comments on Facebook, particularly on Twitter, because it's very live in the moment. So just on the X platform, just tag SAFM Radio, tag me, Ashraf Garda. Please do that, and then use the hashtag National Pulse, and we'll certainly pick up some of your thoughts as well. But every week around this time, this day, Wednesdays, we have a feature that looks at business strategy. So we'll talk about that next.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, it's interesting. I must just tell you this. There's another. We've had people commenting about the fathers and sons, and Ompile saying, Ashraf, what about Dr. Khumalo and Pro Khumalo? Okay, that's interesting because Dr. Khumalo came after, a big difference there. And then Aister Khumani, many may remember him, and then his son, Papi Khumani. So there we are. But of course, many of them won't apply to national level because of the historical issues of apartheid, so they could never have a chance to play at national level. And I understand that. And that may well change if, for example, Makhaya Ntini's son happens to play for the country, right? Okay, let's talk business strategy now with my guest, Nokuthula Lukele, who's a Chief Technology Officer at Grow Space. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ashraf, and hello to your listeners. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Well, I certainly want to touch on your journey in just a moment, but perhaps let's start with this, right? So this feature is all about business strategy. How important, firstly, is developing a business strategy to a business's success?
It's fundamental. The business strategy is essentially the North Star that should be guiding all the activities, operations, and initiatives that the business is doing, all to reach the goal of that business plan or strategy. And so it's extremely foundational.
And just help us understand, again, I'm assuming many people know, but others may not. When we talk about a business strategy, what does it mean?
A business strategy is essentially what a business wants to achieve within a certain time frame. So you can have short-term strategies that are around 6 to 12 months, medium-term strategies around 1 to 2 years, and you have longer-term strategies that can be 3, 5, 10 years, depending on your industry. But it's essentially what you would want your impact to your beneficiaries, which is customers or businesses or civil society, what you want to provide them. And so everything you do in your business will have to link to that strategy of what you see as success.
Okay. So what advice can you give the many people listening who have clear business intentions but are very, very low on strategy in terms of how they should start embracing and activating a strategy?
Yeah, I think from the very inception point of building a business strategy, it will be important to understand your vision, which is the big dream of impact that you want, and your mission, the key pillars that you think will help you reach that vision. Once you've done that, it's a great place to start with your strategy is a business model canvas. And this is a one-pager framework. People can look it up online, and it basically helps you figure out all the dimensions of your business: customers, suppliers, how you deliver, resources, channels, etc. And so that's where I would start if I was in the early stages.
So who does one go to when you need a business strategy? Do you do it yourself based upon your own gut feeling because it's your business after all, or do you get somebody else and pay them money that you can't even afford?
Yeah, there are two models to getting a strategy developed. The first is insourcing, and so if you have a strategist, they might not have the role the position as strategy, but if they are a strategist, you can have the expertise internally. If you've got a chief strategy officer, sometimes COOs act as strategists as well. So there's insourcing, and then there's outsourcing. The most obvious one is strategy consulting firms. Either there are many that serve small SMMEs, small, medium, and micro businesses, and others that serve larger businesses. But there's also outsourcing of independent consultants, which is great for people who have smaller budgets and require quicker turnaround times and less bureaucracies.
Let's talk about your own journey. I mean, what is it that you do?
So I'm currently the Chief Technology Officer at GrowSpace. I started my career as a mechanical engineer, but I quickly realized I wanted to have more strategic and economic impact. So I did my MBA and to learn more about business and transitioned into management consulting, both in South Africa and then subsequently in Silicon Valley, working on digital transformation projects. I then transitioned to the World Economic Forum, where I was the lead of the Digital Transformation of Industries initiative, where we brought global leaders together to think about an inclusive, sustainable digital future. And so all of that equipped me to the position now where I can combine my technical skills with my business acumen to drive the technology in our company, GrowSpace.
Okay, tell me more about GrowSpace.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy to talk about GrowSpace. GrowSpace aims to bridge the gap between quality talent and the evolving demands of industries, which are changing rapidly. So we're an AI-driven platform that helps skilled professionals connect with job opportunities in high-growing industries like tech, finance, renewable energies, and so forth. And our focus is on making sure that we don't just place talent, but that we leverage technology to help people looking for talent, whether it's companies or individuals. We help them refine their job descriptions for their needs. We help individuals refine their profiles and resumes for better positioning in the market. And we leverage AI to make sure that we create quick and accurate matches between candidates and employers. So my role is really to oversee the technology side of things and how we can deliver these services in a scalable, secure, and inclusive manner.
And how do you get it right?
How do we get it right?
Yeah,
from the CTO perspective, the very first step is understanding the business strategy, which is kind of goes full circle to your very initial questions. And everything that we plan and the technology roadmap that we're building needs to link to the business strategy. So similar to how you would build a business strategy, I need to build a technology strategy and roadmap so that all the activities, the technologies we choose, how we implement it, and the activities we do, all aligning to a technology strategy and roadmap that is linked to the business goals. And so it's really managing quite a few dimensions there.
Okay, quite interesting indeed. Let's leave it at that. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. And that's Nokuthula Lukele, the Chief Technology Officer at GrowSpace. So once a week we have this feature called business strategy. But perhaps, let me put this out to you. If you have seen and observed a really fabulous business strategy that you want to have discussed on air, then go for it. Maybe the other one is if you have a business problem that requires some sort of answers, and maybe put it to us, and then let's see if we can get someone to actually advise that business strategy to a degree in broad spaces live here on the National Pulse. So, the National Pulse is clearly not just about politics, but about everything that impacts the heartbeat. And that's why it is a case of fingers on the pulse. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg.
Thank you, Ashraf. Learners rushed to hospital with suspected foodborne illness, and Israel continues airstrikes in Lebanon. Good day to you. 16 learners from a primary school in Tembisa, east of Johannesburg, have been rushed to hospital after contracting what's believed to be a foodborne illness. Initial reports indicate that a group of learners reported to the school office after experiencing dizziness and vomiting. Upon investigation, it was discovered that they had consumed acha, which they bought from other learners. 3 of the 16 learners remain in hospital. The spokesperson for the Gauteng Education Department, Steve Mabona.
2 grade 7 learners from the school reportedly indicated that they sold acha on behalf of a woman who is a community work program member who is stationed at the school. Emergency services responded swiftly and transported all affected learners to different medical facilities. Parents were promptly informed, and some of them, they managed to accompany their children to those facilities.
There have been a number of reports of children getting ill after eating contaminated food. In one of the most recent incidents in KwaZulu-Natal, 43 learners were admitted to hospital with suspected food poisoning. The eThekwini Metro and KZN has been found to have breached the Municipal Finance Management Act. The SIU revealed this in Parliament while giving an update on its probe relating to allegations of maladministration. The SIU told the Standing Committee on Public Accounts that two other municipalities that have also flouted the Act are the OR Tambo Municipality in the Eastern Cape and the Ngaka Municipality in the Northwest. The SIU's Leonard Legeto.
We have found that there was a contravention of the municipal prescript in the allocation of sites and immovable assets by the municipality, and there were also irregularities in the appointment of the service providers, and there were also irregularities in the allocation of sites to service providers. So on this one, Chair, we didn't go through the details just to identify the exact irregularities which we've identified, but we just tried to summarize it. But in terms of the outcome of the investigation, we have made disciplinary referrals to the municipality for the financial misconduct against 4 members, and we have also made NPA referrals against 20 members.
The Police Minister, Senzo Mchunu, has commended police as well as private security who made the swift arrest of 7 suspects involved in a robbery at Clearwater Mall in Roodepoort, west of Johannesburg. The heavily armed robbers stormed a jewellery store at the mall yesterday. A shootout ensued, resulting in 2 officers and 3 suspects being wounded. Police say some of the stolen jewellery has already been recovered. Spokesperson for the Police Ministry, Kamogelo Mogotsi.
Minister Mchunu says the swift action of all law enforcement agencies has once again shown our commitment to safeguarding our communities. This incident demonstrates that we are on the right path, as evidenced by the quick turnaround time in apprehending the suspects and the effective use of resources via the SAPS and provincial government choppers. The determination and bravery displayed by the officers, even in the face of armed resistance, is highly commendable.
The George Municipality in the Western Cape says the 1.1 billion rand injection from National Treasury into water infrastructure projects is going well. Several projects have been ongoing since 2022, some of which are nearing their 2025 deadline, and others have already been completed. George is prone to drought, and the municipality introduced the projects to boost its water resources. Several road closures and water supply interruptions are expected in some parts of Phoenix, north of Durban. The eThekwini Metro says a major water supply reticulation upgrade project will start tomorrow and run until Friday. Municipal spokesperson Gugu Sisilana.
Customers who are supplied with water from the Phoenix 1 reservoir are informed of a planned water shutdown. The water shutdown is necessary for the city's water operational team to work on Stonebridge Drive to finalize the reticulation upgrade project. This upgrade will interrupt water supply as well as result in the closure of several roads that will be barricaded for this work to be undertaken.
The media in Lebanon says Israel has started airstrikes in the southern city of Tyre. Israel says it's targeting Hezbollah fighters. The BBC's Jonathan Head has more.
This is the first time the actual historic city centre has been targeted. It was an entire neighbourhood right next to the UNESCO World Heritage Site. I mean, this is one of the most illustrious and ancient cities of the classical world. One assumes that Israel believes it has legitimate targets there. They haven't spelled out why they're attacking it. Many of the other towns to the south have been battered for weeks now, and their populations have moved into bigger cities like Tyre. So we're going to have yet again, and this is such a familiar pattern now, another wave of displacement, another wave of fear in one of the big cities that perhaps they're now going to become a regular target for Israeli bomb strikes.
The top story is that 16 learners from a primary school in Tembisa have been rushed to hospital after contracting what's believed to be a foodborne illness. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Coase.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Nepal, South Africa announced squad for Spar Challenge International Test Series, and Bangladesh lead by 81 runs against the Proteas on day 3 of their first test. More details about Turkey.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is queuing towards Crown Interchange. The N1 northbound in Roodepoort has a crash reported near Main Reef Road Bridge. Winnie Mandela Drive northbound in Hurlingham has a crash before Republic Road. Catherine Street in Sandton has a crash at Greyston Drive. And Mabopane Highway northbound in Pretoria has a stationary truck reported at the Hairpin Bend. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle near the Spy Drive exit. The N3 eastbound in Camptown has a stationary truck near Umlaus Road. The N3 is queuing on the link to the N2 south at Spaghetti Junction. The N2 is road surface damage just west of Izelgowini, so delays and diversions are possible. And the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle reported after Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Krumbum Road exit. The M3 southbound is queuing towards Rhodes Drive. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N7 southbound queuing towards Bosmansdam Road. One lane is open. And the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right. Did you hear that story about the other story of food poisoning regarding achar? Oh my goodness, man. We're just having so many of these stories, and how can this ever be acceptable? Is the frequency increasing now, or are we just hearing more about it now, and there's greater amplification because of, media coverage and things like that? Either way, it's incredibly disturbing and well, clearly unacceptable, and I don't know what's going to happen next besides people just reporting about it, isn't it? Right. Okay, we're still going to talk about other things. We'll talk about the DA in a few minutes. They have distanced themselves from President Ramaphosa's comments regarding the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, that's all very connected to what we'll talk about first, which is about the BRICS summit. There's an update on that. Let me also remind you, if you want to raise something that's of a big concern to you, feel free to connect. Probably the easiest way, just a voice note is great. 0614 104 107. You can also text us, but to call in, it's fine too. 086 000 2032. And if you're listening on streaming live compared to the radio, as per the conversation with SABC Plus yesterday, then let me know. I certainly want to know if you're listening on streaming live and where you're listening from, right? Okay, let's talk about the BRICS summit. So yesterday we chatted about it with Sophie McGuena. Today, Russia rolling out the red carpet to its allies. Well, that happened yesterday. Of course, they're the host of the BRICS summit. The SABC News reporter has been following the story, and that's Kayelitle Kumalo James. Thank you for your time, and you're now connected to the National Pulse.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners as well.
Thank you. So, right, what's happened today? I take it they may be an hour or two ahead of us in terms of time.
Well, certainly, Ashraf, they are indeed an hour ahead of us. So today, really, they got down to the brass tacks, where they were talking about quite a number of issues, where the leaders, they were delivering their country statements. And also, it was a very seminal point because, as you know, that the bloc has been expanded. You have the likes of Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt as well. They had an opportunity as well, where they spoke quite a number of issues, Ashraf. Obviously, the common thread is around the global reforms when you talk about major institutions. But also, as you know, that BRICS itself, they do have their own bank, the New Development Bank, which is headed by the former Brazilian president, Dilma Rousseff, where they spoke about the challenges really that are facing the global south, where they talk about predominantly what is known as the Bretton Woods institutions, your IMF and World Bank, where they spoke about the exorbitant cost that the developing world is still subjected to. So they said it's high time that BRICS also must amplify its voice as well. When you talk about, for example, the United Nations Security Council, for example, also President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is representing South Africa, spoke at length about the significance of BRICS, saying that it's all about equity, it's all about really making sure that they fix all these imbalances that you still have that are impeding the progress, especially affecting the developing world. But also, Ashraf, for Russia, this is such a very important moment. As you know, that currently they are facing raft of sanctions for a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So for President Putin, this is such a very important moment as he's hosting these leaders.
Let's talk about that part. That, you know, one thing is the business of the BRICS summit, but also it can be used very much as a brand building exercise, either not just for the broader organization, but certainly for the individual players, and in this case, Russia and Vladimir Putin, right?
Well, that's absolutely right, Ashraf. I mean, we look at the optics of this, especially in the context of what the West has been saying. They've always been very patently clear that anyone who's helping Russia to evade the impact of sanctions will be dealt with. And we know that with South Africa, in terms of our foreign policy, we always say, we're right in the global south. We do have the partners in global north. As you know, for example, South Africa, when you talk about AGOA, a very important instrument. And the U.S. is a very key partner for South Africa. But also, President Ramaphosa once again emphasizing that Russia is South Africa's dependable partner. It's a very important ally, you know, in terms of so many convergence, and they share so many sentiments when you look at the developmental story. But also, it was also quite interesting, Ashraf, hearing from some leaders as well. One of the newest members of BRICS, that's of course Ethiopia, with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed also emphasizing the issue of development, saying that it's quite important to have multilateral institutions that are working effectively for all countries, irrespective of their economic size, especially also given the very influence that has been drawn by BRICS. Something that is going to be discussed by the leaders, Ashraf, is the reports emanating from the BRICS summits in Johannesburg, the issue around the criteria, the issue around the prospective countries that are still trying to enter into the BRICS family, the likes of Thailand. In fact, President Putin is saying it's about 30-odd countries that are still keen to be part of BRICS.
Okay. And just help us understand this, right? How much of, you know, what we know of BRICS is done publicly in the public domain, where we follow it on TV channels and radio and other forms of media, and other things are negotiated privately. And if they are negotiated privately between the two countries, you know, how do we get wind of what they're saying and what they finally do?
That's absolutely true, Ashraf. So then you have those certain details, those nuances where the leaders, it's behind closed doors. For example, a very interesting scenario will be the neighbors. When you look at Russia and, of course, China, I mean, there was a point where they would have the tension. But, I mean, somewhat now things are working out. But also what would be a very clear example would be India and China. For some time, they've always had some border issues. But prior to this gathering in Russia, I think there were a lot of diplomatic efforts behind the scene where eventually they were able to have the almost like a border patrol agreement. So those are certain things where the leaders really behind the scenes as well do have an opportunity. And in the African context, Ashraf, you look at Egypt, Ethiopia, it's quite a very known situation that with the Ethiopians constructing the dam where they're extracting water from Nile River, that has been a source of consternation for Egypt. And of course, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, he was very concerned about this. But I would imagine that behind the scenes again, Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Prime Minister Ahmed, and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, they will have an opportunity to perhaps say and have these frank talks where they really talk to each other and say, look, these are the ramifications. But obviously, it's always interesting. So you can only get those things through the leaks, and if you really have the very good relations with some of their advisors.
And now this is a very opinion-based question, which is, you know, how do the BRICS team, how do they decide, or maybe not just them, maybe you know, economists and commentators like yourself, how does one determine whether a certain year of the BRICS summit is significantly important and successful versus others?
I think it's always quite important because, for example, when you look back here in Johannesburg in South Africa was saying BRICS should not just work for South Africa, but it should work for the African continent as well. And by virtue of that statement, you had so many countries invited in Johannesburg, the likes of Mozambique and many other African heads of states who came really, who are sharing the sentiments, because it's all about really addressing these global issues. It's all about focusing in terms of, because obviously, Ashraf, when you look at some of the core principles of BRICS, they talk about non-interference on domestic issues, and also they talk about mutual respect. So quite a number of countries really do share those sentiments. And also what has been a very clear emphasis from the BRICS leaders, they say as much as it is really growing enormously in terms of its impact in Global South, not in any way they try to replace the Western world. I mean, obviously, I think that's open to interpretation, especially now where you have these multiple issues, whether you're looking at issues around artificial intelligence, issues around sustainable development. But when you look at really what has been the theme of Russia, which is the reforms of the global financial institutions. Obviously, the Russians here, they do have their own case with the sanctions that are really affecting them in this situation.
Okay, just the last thing here. What more would you be wanting to look out for in the remaining days ahead of the summit?
I think obviously tomorrow is going to be the last day of BRICS, and it's going to be closed by the Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is also the chairperson of this current session. So I think there's going to be quite a lot in terms of the declaration that the countries will adopt. But also it's been really interesting to see other new members also having an opportunity to express themselves and really just sharing their stories in terms of their expectations. But one would imagine that the Western countries are really watching these developments, especially Ashraf, as you know that the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, is also part of these proceedings. And obviously the Ukrainians, they were not happy with that decision. They were saying, look, we invited you during the course of the peace summit in Switzerland and you did not come, and now you're going to Russia. But what has been a very clear statement from the UN is that this is part and parcel of engaging with countries so that we find solution, so that we find consensus, so that we try and find a long-lasting peace.
Well, hopefully by tomorrow this time we'll have that final delivery of the address to the BRICS nations, and then maybe we'll talk to you and certainly see what comes out of it, because I think it's really important what comes out, and then we can dissect it. So much appreciate your time. Some really important insights coming through from Khayelitsha Khumalo James, the SABC News reporter covering the story of the BRICS Summit 2024, which this year in Kazan in Russia.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
Get ready, Mzansi! The jaw-dropping 82 million rand estimated Lotto jackpot is your chance to take home big millions this Saturday. Don't delay! Play Lotto for an estimated 82 million rand jackpot today for your chance at an unforgettable win. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120*7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. eTuba is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed Dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Baye!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Been asking about where people listen into the show from, and particularly about streaming live, because of the fact that we spoke about it yesterday, in fact, regarding the SABC Plus app and how those numbers have grown. And a few people have messaged to say, in fact, we are listening. I just want to find those names. Or maybe I just can't find it for the moment. Here's one saying, in fact, Lihai, I hope I've got that right, Lihai. Ashraf, I stream on my phone. Challenges is it is intermittent, where it just goes silent, and I have to refresh several times during the day. I wonder what you're streaming from, just safm.coza or via an app. But otherwise, just go SABC Plus. Just you'll see. I've certainly listened to it there. It is absolutely terrific. Okay, let's talk about maybe the flip side of the summit, the BRICS summit, still linked to Vladimir Putin and South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa. They are right now together, literally in many ways, right? Now, the DA have released a statement distancing themselves or itself from recent comments made by President Ramaphosa during the bilateral engagements with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. The DA's national spokesperson is Willie Oukamp, and he joins me on the line to tell me exactly what is it that they have a problem with. Willie, I appreciate your time. You connected to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's always good to speak to you on National Pulse.
Thank you. Right. So, but clearly your pulses are racing. You're not happy with something our president has done or said. What concerns you?
Ashraf, when the Government of National Unity was formed, it was agreed that international policies will be agreed to and there will be consensus on that within the GNU. The president of the ANC, who is also the president of the country, is not in government alone anymore. Before the elections, it was an ANC government and he could speak on behalf of the government. I mean, he can still speak on behalf of the government, but he must realize that they don't have an outright majority anymore, that there are partners within this Government of National Unity, and that they must adhere to the agreements that was signed with regards to this GNU. And it is very clear that the Democratic Alliance does not see Russia, especially not Putin, as an ally. He's waging a war on an independent country. So for the president to go and make statements like the one that he made, pronouncing Russia and Putin to be South Africa's friends and the GNU's friends, is not correct, because he is not a friend of the whole of the GNU. What is the purpose of the Government of National Unity if there is no unity in that? There must be unity and there must be consensus. And those issues were written into the agreement of intent that was signed when the Government of National Unity was formed.
Okay, in terms of what is the purpose, is probably something I'd ask you, because I think we're all very confused about just how does this Government of National Unity, how does the glue stick? We don't quite know. So here's the point. Clearly you disagree with the president. He speaks on behalf of South Africa, as you say, that he can't speak on behalf of South Africa. But then yourself, the DA who opposes him, also can't speak on behalf of South Africa, because as you say, we're not happy. You're certainly not happy from a DA perspective. You don't represent the whole country either. Can you see how complicated it is?
Exactly, and that is why we must have an agreement within the GNU that we adhere to, and that agreement was signed at the beginning. So it's very important that when President Ramaphosa speaks on behalf of the GNU, and he is the leader of the GNU, make no mistake, but when he does that, it must be done in a way that the whole of the GNU has got consensus on that. He cannot speak on behalf of the GNU, of which the DA and several other parties are forming part of, without having ironed out problems and differences within the GNU before he then go on a world stage and pronounce that this GNU sees Russia and Vladimir Putin as a friend. It just cannot be.
Perhaps the most fundamental question of all of this is, has South Africa's foreign policy changed since the implementation of the GNU?
Well, it's exactly, it's not the same government anymore. This is a new government. We've had a transition from an outright ANC government to now where the ANC has got 40%. They can't govern outright. And obviously there must be certain changes. We knew from the beginning that as the DA and other parties in the GNU as well, we will not always get what we want. But the same goes for the ANC. And that is one of the reasons why international relations was specifically written into the agreement, that there must be sufficient consensus when it comes to South Africa's international relations, because we are not the same government that we were before May this year.
Okay, point taken. So is there sufficient consensus? And I don't just mean about Vladimir Putin rather. I mean, there could be a range of other issues that South Africa are impacted on and vice versa. Has that been adhered to in practical terms?
Ashraf, whenever there's disagreements within the GNU, we must iron those out, and that is why the technical committee, or the clearinghouse, as President Ramaphosa refers to it, has been set up. That should have been set up quite a while ago. It is meeting tomorrow for the second time. So we believe that we within the GNU and the other partners within the GNU, once we sit around the table, look each other into the eyes and trust each other and listen to one another, we can iron out most of the problems that are standing in the way of good governance of this government of national unity. From the Democratic Alliance side, we are 100% committed to finding each other, and in this whole process, obviously, we will not be rollovers. We will not just stand idle by. I think it is very important that the ANC must realize that they did not win this election, and that they must also go to the negotiating table within the clearinghouse or the technical committee of the GNU with an open mind and understand that they are not alone in government anymore, and that they must consider their partners within this GNU.
Okay, so besides you talking to me, do you then report this to the clearinghouse? Like for misconduct in effect?
I don't think you can call it misconduct. It will be something that will be taken up within the GNU and within cabinet. I'm definitely sure of that. Ashraf, we are at a time in South Africa where we are experiencing a renewed optimism with the first real prospects of economic growth in almost 2 decades. Our government simply cannot afford to make statements that, like the one that the president made, that could jeopardize international relations and trade opportunities. We've said from day one as a Democratic Alliance that it is crucial for South Africa to survive, and to do that we've got to create growth and job creation. Okay. And statements like these, you are known by your friends. If the rest of the world look at South Africa and see our president on a stage declaring that Vladimir Putin, to whom there is an arrest warrant out, is our friend, we might be known by our friends, and that might be to the detriment of the country. President Ramaphosa really needs to take the interests of South Africa into mind and not just foot around with with Vladimir Putin.
Would the DA's position be not so much that he can't even call him a friend, but that President Ramaphosa should not even be in Russia at the BRICS summit in the first place?
Look, Ashraf, if he wants to be there, we are a member of the BRICS nations. Vladimir Putin could not come to South Africa because there's an arrest warrant out for him, and we know that the ANC at that stage wanted him to come, but from the Democratic Alliance side, we said, no way, he's not going to come. As a member of BRICS, it obviously is pertinent on us to go and visit BRICS summits. There's no problem with that. The thing that President Ramaphosa must just be very careful of is in this whole Russia-Ukraine war that rages. From the beginning, the ANC tried to position South Africa as a mediator. Now, if you want to be an objective mediator, how can you stand on a stage and declare one of those parties your friend?
Okay, point made.
And your ally.
Got that. Let's leave it at that. In fact, just as we wrap up, I'll just quote the president's spokesperson or presidency spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, saying, talking about the DA, saying they can't impose that position on the president under the guise of the GNU. Their statement is an attempt to micromanage the president, which will not be allowed regardless of the importance and the respect the president attaches to the GNU. He will not be micromanaged by the DA or any party for that matter in the exercise and management of foreign policy. Let's leave it at that. Appreciate your time, Billy Okam, DA National Spokesperson. You're the audience. Well, fingers on the pulse. What do you make of that? Let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. 16 learners from a primary school in Tembisa, east of Johannesburg, have been rushed to hospital after contracting what's believed to be a foodborne illness. Pietermaritzburg residents in KZN have marched through the city streets in a protest over service delivery, and the Swedish car maker Volvo has halved its sales growth forecast for this year. A full update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Soweto is queuing towards the N17 Soweto exit. The N12 westbound in Diepkloof queuing towards the N1 Diepkloof interchange. Catherine Street in Sandton is a crash reported at Grayston Drive, and the N1 northbound in Midrand slow moving towards Samrand Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle reported after Spaghetti Junction. The N3 is queuing on the link to the N2 south at Spaghetti Junction. The M4 northbound is queuing through Umdloti, and the R102 queuing between Old North Coast Road and the M25 Commercial Highway. In Cape Town, the R300 westbound is slow moving towards the N7 Jakes Havel Drive. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. The N2 outbound is slow moving towards the R300 Highway, and the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
All right, to me, a ball in the net, but we're not talking football. Go ahead.
We're talking netball. Netball South Africa have announced a squad of 15 players for the Spar Challenge International Test Series against the Malawi Queens. Now, the team is captained by Khanyisa Chawane with assistant captain Carla Pretorius. Two of the most experienced players in the team. Head coach Jenny van Dijk will announce a cut-down 12-player team on the 29th of October, and then they will play on the 31st of October. But for the remaining two tests on the 2nd and the 3rd of November, Van Dijk may make changes to her team from the original 15 players, the 15-player squad. Then in football, Mamelodi Sundowns midfielder Lebo Mabue says that he expects Royal AM, who remain winless in the Betway Premiership, to push back when they visit Loftus Stadium tonight. While the Brazilians have a perfect record in the league so far, the KZN rivals have found the start of the campaign quite tough, and they come back of a 3-0 defeat away to Cape Town City in the Carling knockout. And Mabue had this to say about the fixture.
I think I'm expecting a big fight. I think they are a team that hasn't been doing quite well in the previous games. And as you know, any team that comes against us, they will be willing to sweat blood even, So they're not a team that looks to play a lot from the back. They play a lot from second balls, and if we can manage the second balls, I think we've got a greater chance in winning the game.
The other fixture of the evening sees Chippa United host Stellenbosch FC. Then today we'll serve up some nice, tantalizing 9 Champions League fixtures. The highlight of the night being Bayern Munich's trip to Barcelona, a fixture that finished 8-2 back in the 2019-20 season. But Liverpool, Manchester City, Inter, Atletico Madrid and Bayer Leverkusen among the other teams in action, with a few minnows hoping to cause an upset. Meanwhile, Jose Mourinho says that struggling Manchester United will succeed sooner or later as the Fenerbahce boss prepares to take on his former club in the Europa League tomorrow. United manager Erik ten Hag is under pressure after a poor start to the season, which has included draws in their first 2 European matches against Twente and Porto. But Mourinho, who has also managed a string of other high-profile clubs, including Chelsea, Real Madrid and Tottenham, says that United have a potential and he wants them to succeed. Then in cricket, bad weather saw only 58 overs bowled on day 3 of the ongoing test match match between the Proteas and Bangladesh. Bangladesh reached 283 for 7 at stumps in their second innings, and Mehdi Hassan Miraz contributed 72 runs from 134, while J.K. Ali hitting 58 from 111 balls. Meanwhile, Test opening great David Warner has told Australian selectors that he's available to come out of retirement and play in the home series against India. The 37-year-old batsman said that he was dead serious about the offer to return for the 5-match Bora Gavaskar Trophy series that is starting in Perth on the 22nd of November. Finally, in tennis, Emma Raducanu has pulled out of next week's Hong Kong Tennis Open through injury and is hoping to be fit in time for the Billie Jean King Cup. But before I say goodbye, earlier on I was just talking, Ashraf, about Jose Mourinho, and one of his comments that he made today was the fact that it's quite interesting that Manchester United love Erik ten Hag so much because they're still sticking with him compared to when the special one was there. He was out in a jiffy.
So well, not quite a jiffy, but I mean, look, I think he was there for 2.5 years.
That
right?
is a jiffy for a coach like Mourinho.
Year one, he won a trophy. They won the Europa League in year one. And I think that whatever League Cup it's called, or whatever the name is. And then year two, they finished second in the league by 19 points. But that's the one he's arguing to say, if Man City get bowled out because of their so-called alleged irregularities, maybe Man United won the league and maybe I'll get a bonus, which is very interesting. Right? But by the third season, I think by November, disaster had struck and he was gone. So basically, but he wanted certain players and he was never given that opportunity. And that's why he's saying that this new guy has got as many opportunities, has got more opportunities than I have had. And effectively saying, if I had the same opportunities, look where I would go.
He's got more lives
there's
than
certainly
But what
there's
is
something
special
about Eric.
Exactly.
And I don't know. He's very lucky. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got a Harry Potter magic wand, but let's see whether that's working. But he hasn't won anything with that wonders yet, so we know that. Yeah.
Well, with that said, ke nna Tumeng Kgapele, Modimo ke yo.
Muvhango returns for an explosive new season on SABC2. A renaissance of new beginnings, intrigue, and drama with old enemies and new characters. Catch the rebirth season of Muvhango every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. on SABC2 or stream it on SABC Plus. Muvhango, ukovela panda. SABC2.
Namibia and Seychelles both want their presence felt when they meet at 12 midday, while Mzansi's Banyana Banyana confront neighbors Eswatini at 3 p.m. This is the doubleheader of the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Women's Championship. Catch both matches on Friday, 25 October, live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. Mzansi, we're going back to basics, celebrating the golden narratives that have shaped our nation's screens for the 18th South African Film and Television Awards, a tribute to 30 years of democracy, brilliance, and the future of South African entertainment. The red carpet sparkles at 7:30 p.m. and the main event shines brightly at 8 p.m. on Saturday, the 26th of October, live on SABC2, where you belong.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's talk about the facts and figures. And one of the facts and figures are that the SAA, well, they're not in debt. Really? Tell me about this as part of your moving markets, Jimmy.
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening to the listeners. I am just as in shock as you are. The team at SAA has come out to say that they are no longer in debt. They are still looking for an equity partner. They still want to get the airline back on track. If anyone hasn't been keeping up with SAA, obviously there's been a lot that's been in the media around SAA, the Takatso Consortium deal, everything that's happened, and it looks as though things might just be back on a track for the state-owned entity. We're going to speak to the chairman of the SAA board, Derek Hanekom, later on the show to take a look at those statements, try and understand where SAA sits at the moment ahead of next week's midterm budget policy statement. It looks as though they might be one of the SOEs not expecting a bailout from the government, which is always a good thing. I'm still trying to wrap my head around some of the conversations, but we'll definitely have a strong conversation with them around that and try and understand what that means for SAA going forward. Then we've also got a conversation with the team at Eduvos on the show around educational opportunities going into 2025. We've got a conversation with KPMG around a rather interesting outlook that's been put out. It's called the CEO Outlook. It's the inaugural CEO Outlook that's been put out. Basically, a look from the private sector's point of view around where we stand and the outlook going forward. Hopefully some positive insights from there. And then we're going to reflect on those Famous Brands results that came out earlier today. We're going to speak to the Famous Brands Group CEO, Darren Hill, about that and get a sense of how the business is going to be moving forward into the second half of the year. And then it's Wednesday, so Wednesdays are our Executive Lounge day. We've got an Executive Lounge feature as well to get through today. We're going to be speaking to the CEO of a company called Tuesday Consulting, and we're going to get a sense of what she does when she's not running a consulting firm. But before we get to that, the markets have certainly been reacting to what's been happening out there. The Rand has weakened significantly today, giving back more than 1% against the majors. I start with the Rand because I suspect it has something to do with the sentiments being made by the president at the BRICS summit. The Rand has always been a politically driven currency, and looking at the price movements today, yesterday when you and I spoke, the Rand was below 19 Rand against the euro. Now it's at 19 Rand and 25 cents against the euro. It's at 23.11 against the pound, and it's at 17.85 against the US dollar. It has not been this high against the US dollar since we kind of started breaking below those key levels that we saw earlier on. And if we just look at the movements of the Rand, all of these movements have been today alone. I mean, just against the dollar today, it shed that 1.85%. It was at 17.60 at one point yesterday. But those are the movements that we're going to dig into a little later on when we come back. Some of the other movements that have been happening throughout the day. If we take a look at the equities markets, all of the markets were in a bit of a mixed sense. The Japan Nikkei is down about 0.8%, but all other Asian markets were in the green. European markets were mixed, with the DAX the only one in the green, actually, the other two in the red. US markets at the moment, the Nasdaq is down a full percent, and if we look at our own markets, the resources counters finally losing some momentum. They're giving back about 1.5% today, but industrials gaining 0.1%, financials losing 0.1%. As a result, the all share was down 0.3% on the day, and the top 40 was down 0.3% on the day as well. The gold price has got me a bit worried. It's down about 1% at the moment, but the Brent crude price has me a little happy as well. It's below $75 a barrel again. Platinum and palladium still holding steady above $1,000 an ounce in each case. And if we look at cryptos, the Bitcoin price is still above $1 million. It's at 1.18 million or 1.178 million at the moment. So lots to dig into when we come back a little later on. But for now, Ashraf, back to you.
Yeah, well, before I let you go, I mean, you've certainly got something on your masterclass. What do you want to touch on today?
So we're going to be taking a look at the JIBAR rate. Now, we spoke about this yesterday. We actually spoke to a Treasury specialist around this. The central bank is effectively looking to change how this rate is measured. And all that the JIBAR rate is the rate at which banks borrow money from one another. Yes, banks do actually borrow money from each other, and they interact in a certain way. And the measurement of that borrowing is what is being looked at and being revisited by the South African Reserve Bank, by private institutions. There's a whole big committee that's been going through this for the last 6 years or so to revisit how these interbank rates are calculated and measured. We spoke about it yesterday on the show, so anyone that missed it can go catch up on it on the podcasts.
Okay, that's it. Right, so perfect. You have a great show at 6 o'clock, 6 to 7, in fact, with Jimmy Moyaha, the SAFM Market Update. I'm going to take your calls. I'll take your voice notes, whatever it is that moves the national pulse after this.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get to your calls. Don't forget, we'll have the feature, as we always do, called Winning around in about 5 minutes' time. Temba, go for it. Hi.
Yes, how are you, Ashraf?
I'm good indeed. Right, what's your point?
Very, very good. My point is actually the DA is being critical now when they are saying that, because were they not in Israel just a few months ago?
Yeah, but I don't think it's about that. So they saying that the president can't speak on behalf of the country because the country is he's not the president of the whole country. He's not the president of the ANC any longer. So if he has to speak, he must get the views of all the GNU members. That's really what they're saying.
And which are those views of the GNU members? I think it's important for us to dissect what he is trying to say. Who are our friends now? If the Russians, who we are in the same league in the BRICS, and then we need to go there and then say, but we don't like you.
Well, and in fact, that's what the DA is saying, that you can't be too friendly with him and say you're the friend of the whole of South Africa. Rather say you're the friend of the ANC, for example. But you can't say that as the president of the country. That's the argument.
Obviously, in any country, when a country represents the majority view of the people of that country. I don't think the Americans themselves are all friends of Israel. We know that.
Okay, look, it's complex. I hear the majority. In fact, it's so complex. Can you imagine the president going to the GNU parties every time he's got to pronounce on policy? But in fact, the DA is saying just that. That's why the GNU is fraught with complications every single time. Temba, thanks for that. Appreciate your time. Let's get another comment on the GA from Solomon in KZN. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Yeah, good afternoon. Go for it.
Really, DA is just causing a storm in a teacup. They agreed when they entered in this relationship that they are not going into a melting pot. They will remain keeping their features and their approaches in terms of policies at an international level and otherwise. We do know what is the relationship of DA with Israel in this case, and we appreciate that. As a matter of fact, that it is their prerogative. I think they should allow the president as the head of the state to pursue and forge whatever kind of relationship which he sees is good. Remember, it is historical, the relationship between Russia and South Africa in this case. So the DA is just causing a storm in a cup. We do understand that economic development hinges largely on sentiments and speculations more than the facts. Hence, it is the case now, just a mere statement, according to DA, threatens economic growth and development, which is quite very bizarre, but we accept it as such.
Can we leave it at that? Because I think you've made your point, and you've certainly done it and expressed it. And again, many will be nodding in approval, but again, as I expect, others will be saying no, right? By the way, linked to the BRICS Summit, go to the Twitter account or the X account, X platform, go to Presidency ZA, right, which is the account of the presidency. And they've just tweeted, or he's just tweeted, a link to download the 16th BRICS Summit Kazan Declaration, the 16th BRICS Summit Kazan Declaration. Just check it out. I'm certainly going to do so, and hopefully we'll get it shared from SAFM Radio as well. Okay, maybe we've got another WhatsApp we can play. Let's do this.
Yes, good day, Ashraf, and my fellow listeners. Look, Ashraf, the ATM guy is correct. You see, if we don't deal with the borders, it's like we're assisting these guys, these foreigners, to go home for Christmas and then come back. Look, it's like when it's raining, when your house is letting water in from the roof, you can't just sweep the floor while the rain is entering from the roof. You first you seal the roof, and then you can mop the floor. It's Comrade Shaba here in Palapur.
All right, Comrade Shaba, I think the point is well made and certainly an issue we've discussed. Let's get another one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. So Lima Paila and Panyasa Sufi, they think that South Africans cannot think. In fact, they have the mentality that we have a short span. We cannot really remember things that they have done. Remember ANC when they had power, they could take the whole fleet of PRASA and transport people for free to Cape Town on their rallies. Now they come here and try to sound wonderful and say they are here for blacks. Nothing like they are here for blacks. They want to eat.
Okay, well, got that. Certainly think all political parties, and I've said this before, generally must understand that one of their primary goals is to stay in power. Work that one out.
Ashraf, when we speak of politics, we're talking about the competition between the visible hand and the invisible hand. The visible hand, which is the government, and the invisible hand, which is monopoly capital, the big companies. Now, when it comes to the issue of foreign nationals, who benefits from their entrance into this country? Is it not monopoly capital, whereby they will get cheap labor, whereby these car selling companies have got customers, but these foreigners, they buy cars, big cars from them. So we cannot only blame the government. Monopoly capital also must be blamed for that.
Okay, there we are. That's one more point. Right, we're going to actually talk about, we'll talk to someone in a winning feature right after this.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The days of Banyana are meeting for the very first time. The 12th world-ranked women's national team want to triumph on home soil. However, African champions have a different notion in mind. They want to be the victors on foreign ground. Europe clashes with Africa. This is the international friendly, red and white versus green and gold. Catch the breathtaking clash between Denmark and South Africa on Friday, 25 October at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, every day we end the show with a feature called Winning People and Organizations that are winning at what they do, and they best in class, or they champion great causes. Now, let's talk to Tshepang Lutsaba, who's the founder of SA United Against Cancer. Tshepang, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, we talked to you today because of your work in effectively championing the cause against cancer. So tell me more about that.
Okay, South Africa United Against Cancer is NPO that was established on 2018 with a mission to assist and have awareness around cancer. And our focus is just not breast cancer as it's October month, but our focus is to give the insight and the out of the cancer as a whole. So every month we're educating people around different types of cancer.
Okay. So what then do you do? I mean, in terms of the education, but I also understand there's a race that's involved, or a walk around raising awareness too.
Yes, on the 27th, this is an annual event that we're having, Wellness Walk Against Cancer, that will be taking place in Riflay, south of Johannesburg, where we're having awareness and we're having the screening. So it's a family picnic day, but more on the wellness side, where they can do different screening at the day of the event.
Okay. What and how successful has it been in the past, and what are your expectations this time around?
It's been successful, I must say. People, they've been supporting us, but we just hope that we'll get sponsors in future, they'll come on board and assist, because whatever that we're doing right now is strictly based on people who contributed to those 200 rand for the ticket so that they can be part of their work.
Yeah. How did you get involved in this project?
The project started with my family. My family is being the victim of cancer, my grandmother, my auntie. And when I was losing my auntie in 2018, I've reached a point that, enough is enough. After 3 days before he passed away, he just mentioned that, Sepang, you need to do something about this. And, it was just questionable to say, okay, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not even, what's that I need to do? But 3 days when I get a call that she's no more, and I knew the last conversation that I had with her, she wanted to have awareness. She was saying we don't have awareness in rural areas. People, they need to know about it. They mustn't associate it, with witchcraft. So her dream, it was to educate people of what she went through.
Okay,
so
so
I
that's
had to
interesting.
open the organization in honor of her and to say, not in my generation, no one will suffer from this monster, and so that is a witchcraft.
Well, I hope you're succeeding. I mean, what has the awareness brought to your community?
Awareness, what I like is that even some of the brothers around us, especially when it comes to prostate cancer, I had friends that even, very educated, they know these things, but they always feel ashamed in terms of them to go and do the testing and all this. But I've noticed one thing, as we do this wellness, I see guys, they are coming up, they are asking questions, they are willing even to go and do their tests.
Okay, direct me maybe to an account, a website that we can direct people to.
Yes, our website is www.sauac.org.
Okay, that's it. Thank you for your time, Tshepang Luchaba, the founder of SA United Against Cancer. Before we wrap up, by the way, tonight I'm actually off to Thebe Kalafang's book launch. So, I mean, that's a champion, a winner in his own way. He's been to, besides being a brand champion, he's been to he's been to every single one, 50 plus, that every single one of the African countries on this continent. And tonight he's launching a book called The Traveller. So there we are. I'll certainly attend and tell you more about The Traveller tomorrow. Let's get some of your thoughts.
Ashraf and the SFM listener. Ashraf, if maybe you want to, stopping this thing of firemen, people shooting each other, sorry. I mean, all the legal can need to have a tracker, like some cars, where they can trace it. If maybe something had happened, it can trace, and then you can that person must be asked where you were going with that car everywhere, like if maybe you're going carrying the car and so on and so on. Then it will stop even the stealing of firearms from the original members, from the SAPS, so on and so on. But here they Kurlin.
Well, I'll tell you what a good idea, man. I was just talking yesterday and this morning about maybe banning guns completely or firearms, because that's the cause of people dying. If you have a knife versus a firearm, there's a better chance of more people dying if you've got a firearm, right? I mean, ideally, we don't want any crime. But your point, if we can put effectively a tracker on cars and a tracker on your mobile phones, why can't we do the same thing with the guns? Really, why can't we do that? Okay, here's another.
Shraf, to me, the GNU means nothing. I use firewood to cook, a solar panel to charge my cell phone. I have lost everything because of the high rate of crime. I work 3 times a day as a gardener, and I am heavily exploited. It's business as usual.
Wow.
Thank you.
I tell you what, it's your call is very sober as we end the show, and you say it's a reminder to all of us that ultimately, we can talk and we can debate about things like what's the national pulse all day long, but at the very core, and the same with the parliamentarians and the politicians, right? At its very core, it is always about the people, and it is sad to say, but statistically, this concept of a better life for all in the last 30 years has not happened for the vast majority of the people of our country. It represents the single biggest challenge in this country. How then do we ensure that we actually do have a better life for all? Clearly, that call, the gardener, is not having a better life for all. And that's something I want you to think about and perhaps give me some solutions. You can tweet it out, but certainly let's talk about it tomorrow. Certainly want to do that. That's the show today. As always, a real great appreciation that you stuck with us all throughout the 3 hours, and to the entire team that puts it all together. I mean, we've certainly got an entire team that makes sure things work out to make sure that we deliver to you the big issues that impacts the national psyche. This is the National Pulse. Let's get the news now. It's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg Hose.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Learners rush to hospital with suspected foodborne illness, and Premier visits family of teenager killed by lightning. Good evening. 16 learners from a primary school in Tembisa, east of Johannesburg, have been rushed to hospital after contracting what's believed to be a foodborne